Chapter 847, for example, worship weapons. To Sai Lei, they had a terrifyingly low efficiency of energy. But because the sacred Saint Galaxy did not lack energy, it was so abundant that it made people jealous, and thus did not need to consider this problem. Lance shook his head. I am not worried. I am just curious. When we capture these bandits, I will ask them, how did they manage to escape from the Gold Continent to here? Could there be a star door that leads to the Gold Continent? That is a huge matter. The current Ao Deng had long been forgotten by people, and it was hard for people to remember that the young Ao Deng, regardless of strength or prestige, was not inferior to the current Lance. But a pity, an injury had completely destroyed the outstanding military general. Even the backing of the Western traders, Go Chung Wendao, would definitely not offend Lance, who had such a bright future, and would instead try to rope him in. But regardless of how one looked at it, the technology used in the new warship was something that the ordinary craftsmen were unable to understand. From the start, they had never planned to repair the Honorable Marshal's roar, but planned to build a new warship. A new warship required time, and not a short amount of time. Our trading organization is currently being robbed by bandits. Clan Elder Jonathan and his loyal and devoted Ao Deng have been brutally killed by the bandits. The Ratchet Army and the Daylight Army have all suffered fatal blows, and the Red Soil City has been robbed clean. What are the local government thinking? Oh my God! Such powerful bandits have appeared in the Western region, and no one actually knows about it. If the bandits are not quickly eliminated, and our losses are not recouped, then our Western traders will be doubtful of your capabilities. In our own territory, we are actually unable to ensure our safety and wealth. Sai Lei had researched on the Sacred Saint Galaxy's warships for a long time, and naturally knew where the Sacred Saint Galaxy's warships were strong. The strongest aspects of the Sacred Saint Galaxy's warships were their materials and hull designs. The Honorable Marshal's roar's keel was made from the most outstanding materials, and its toughness was something that could not be found in Heaven's Road. The craftsmen worked extremely hard, but every day, when they rested, they would laugh at the amateurs of the bandits, and that became their only pastime. What did you discover? Norman asked curiously. Lance was surprised. I heard that only the Whitefields continent suffered damage. Furthermore, your trading organization has elite guards, and with the Blood Fox holding down the fort, aren't the bandits easy to deal with? The 12 lieutenant generals were not ordinary people, and all of them were equally outstanding. If there was a vacancy in the 5 Tiger generals, a new Tiger general would be chosen from the 12 lieutenant generals. The young Lance was seen as one of the candidates with the highest possibility of becoming one of the 5 great generals. The fleet that had been plundered from Red Soil City had arrived, greatly increasing the efficiency of the repairs. When the craftsmen saw the completely changed Honorable Marshal's roar, they were completely stunned. They were all secretly waiting to see the joke. The bandits had probably heard about the Honorable Marshal's roar from somewhere, and had the wishful thinking to repair the legendary warship. The director of shipbuilding kept a close eye on them. Their daily workload was very heavy, and no one dared to slack off. The other party was a murderous bandit, and they did not want to die here. Hence, when Screw arranged for them to work, none of them resisted and obediently followed Screw's instructions. When they started working, they were even more convinced that the bandits were messing around. Master Elderweiss's encampment is too far away from Whitefield's continent. Distant water cannot quench nearby thirst. The representative of the Western traders knew that it was impossible not to bleed. He clenched his teeth and said, 20 silver-grade warships, as long as Master is willing to send out troops. I am willing to donate 20 silver-grade warships to your army. General Lance. Lance, who was seated below, propped up his chin beneath his dazzling golden hair. He had a sleepy expression. Norman laughed. This will allow them to send the Scorching Sun warships even faster. What nonsense is this? Screw remained unmoved. But if we offend them, it will not do us any good. Norman said softly, the Western traders are going to be ruthless this time. Who knows if we will receive the order to move? Trash display ships? Tang Tian brought the God Armor Army and quietly left. Just at that moment, a soldier suddenly rushed in and handed over a report. They are a bunch of lunatics. His gaze met with the pair of unreadable eyes, and the arrogant representative of the Western traders froze. He suddenly remembered that Lance was not an ordinary military general. Why not? Lance shrugged his shoulders. A strong dragon cannot suppress a snake in its turf. The Western traders have been operating in the Western region for so many years and have deep roots. If we truly fall out with them, I reckon we will have to change locations. We haven't been here for long. If we change locations, we will lose face. I just want to tell them that we are not so easily swayed. I don't know, I just have this feeling. Lance muttered. Their actions are completely unlike bandits, as though they have a goal in mind. Honorable Marshals roar. Oh my God, they actually want to repair. The Honorable Marshals roar. They were extremely clear on how weak the current Honorable Marshal continent was. Lance glanced at them. The Gold Continent bandits have left the White Fields continent and have found traces of them in the auspicious Wood continent. The Honorable Marshal's roars repairs continued day and night. The representative of the Western traders scolded Lance in his heart and clenched his teeth. Deal. Lance said, I need the Scorching Sun warship. Norman nodded his head, his face gloomy. The loose structure was on the verge of collapse, causing people to be wary of it falling down. How can they not add more beams? What kind of arrangement is this? It goes against the classic structure. It is full of mistakes. Oh, my God, is this a battle position? Do these bandits have any intelligence? Could it be that by piling up the warship weapons, they can increase their might? As expected of bandits, many people started to despise them. But they did not have the heart to remind them. Not only that, they were determined to completely comply with the other party's request. Other than the Honorable Marshal's roar, the other arrangements of the new warship were completely different. The Honorable Marshal Continent's highest-ranking generals were the 5 great generals, and below them were the 12 lieutenant generals who formed the backbone of the Honorable Marshal Continent. The Honorable Marshal Continent's vast territory was because of the 12 lieutenant generals overseeing it, which was why it was peaceful. In truth, the craftsmen were not as united. Some of them could not help but run to Screw and tried to make him understand how many laughable mistakes he had made. The West Sea Continent was an important continent in the Honorable Marshal Continent's western region, where roughly 25% of the metal trades were conducted, and the West Seas Metal Ore Exchange was one of the 4 most important trading markets in the western region, which made the West Sea Continent the most flourishing continent. To die in the hands of bandits, to the military generals who once shook the battlefield, it was undoubtedly a humiliation. But the current West Sea Continent's conference hall was extremely tense. I heard that your side found General Oliver for a different price. Lance said slowly. Just now, when you mentioned the Scorching Sun warship, his face turned black. Norman laughed. He was extremely excited. 30 Scorching Sun warships was definitely a huge deal. Overall, the Sacred Saint Galaxy's design was the same as the Sacred Saint Galaxy's martial techniques. It was big and simple. The Western trader's representative, who had lost his cool previously, immediately spoke up. Master, this subordinate is angry that the bandits are too arrogant. The entire Western region is currently in a state of panic, and the trade routes have been cut off. Master, the millions and millions of citizens in the Western region are waiting for Master to take action and wipe out the damned Gold Continent bandits. When they regained their senses from the shock, the strange Honorable Marshal's roar in front of them made them not know whether to laugh or cry. They had never seen such a terrible-looking warship. That's right, it was terrible-looking. The Western traders' representative did not expect Lance to be so well-informed. But as long as the other party named a price, it would be easy to handle, he said without hesitation. 30 silver-grade warships. It's the same price for General Oliver. Norman, who was beside him, reminded him softly, "That's not good." An intense voice interrupted Lance's reminiscence. He raised his head and faced the Western traders' representative and asked indifferently, "What's the matter?" The honorable marshal's roar in front of them looked as though the hull of the ship was filled with all sorts of trash. To Sai Lei, who was used to meticulousness, the crude designs were something she could never tolerate, and Mo Lung had simplified her meticulous designs and did his best to shorten the construction period. Even so, it still caused many of the craftsmen to complain. Lance shook his head. The Gold Continent bandits are not simple. Lance's face revealed a smile. Where was the indifference from before? As for the other designs, Sai Lei did not care about them. He sighed. It is a pity for Ao Deng. His standard is not bad. The silver-grade warships were of different standards, and their prices differed greatly. The Scorching Sun warship was a high-grade product among the silver-grade warships, with astonishing fighting strength, but its price was also astonishing. Every single one of them cost more than 200 million honorable marshal coins. No wonder the Western traders' representative's face turned black. Most of them belonged to various organizations and were filled with worry along the way, worried about their own fate, and worried that the bandits would force them to build warships. Once the bandits were destroyed, they would be dealt with as well. Lance was quiet for a moment, then said indifferently, "That's right." Seeing the honorable marshals roar in front of them, they relaxed. The Western traders had an extremely powerful army, the Blood Fox Army. From the selection of soldiers, the army had extremely high standards, and their equipment were of the finest quality, much more luxurious than Lance's army. The Blood Fox Army's training standards were extremely strict, and it was said that they had received special guidance from Go Chung Wundao. Nicknamed Blood Fox, the General Elvis was cunning like a fox and had extraordinary strength. If a passage to the Gold Continent appeared in the Honorable Marshal Continent's hinterland, then to the Honorable Marshal Continent, it would undoubtedly be the worst thing that could happen. For an outsider to build such a big ship, it is truly a mistake. Lance opened his eyes in a daze. What's not good about it? I can guess what he is going to say next. I am not a bodyguard of the Western traders. Furthermore, the Western traders are well-trained and well-equipped with their equipment and treatment. Our army is not even fit to carry their shoes. Although they had to pay a huge price, but it was a good result, and the representatives left satisfied. Purpose? Norman started to ponder. Could it be that they want to do something big? But you don't have to worry too much. We will add Oliver. That is double insurance. Norman watched as they left and heaved a sigh of relief. I thought you wouldn't agree. That's good. That's good. Chapter 848. That's a good idea. Ji was the first to support. It was the 6th time he had suddenly changed direction. Then we can do this. Tang Tian said decisively, we will first sneak attack the Western traders and focus on their warehouse. After that, we will set up an ambush, and the Western traders will definitely ask for reinforcements from the local armies. That way, we can give them a fierce blow. But, as they please, the Gold Continent bandits wanted to take the chance to escape. The densely packed bronze monsters welcomed their arrival, as though they were silently laughing at them. The 5 of them scolded. The torrential rain obstructed their vision, which meant that the difficulty of tailing them had greatly increased. The monster army advanced forward on the ground. He had specially chosen a vast wilderness without any cities. That way, even if they encountered enemies, they would have sufficient space to turn around. Furthermore, after considering the final outcome, he would be able to gain more time for the rear. He felt that he had to do something. to sit here and wait for the honorable marshal's roar to be repaired, and watch as time flowed, to watch as their lives flowed. Since Tang Tian could not do it, he had to do something. Zhong Libai waited patiently. Although he knew that the longer it dragged, the more dangerous his situation would be, but he was like a lone wolf in the winter, persevering and waiting for an opportunity. They flew very high and never flew low, and only followed from afar, causing Zhong Libai to be helpless. The monster army was a typical land-based mechanical spirit weapon, although it had the ability to fly, but regardless of height or speed, it was not satisfactory. On the contrary, the opponent's speed was extremely fast, and they were extremely cautious, flying extremely high. With the monster army's pitiful flying ability, they were unable to handle them. Zhong Libai's smile became wider and wider, his eyes revealing a beastly killing intent. Extremely strong, Johnson said without hesitation. Master Lance is the youngest lieutenant general. His talent is astonishing, and is hailed as the most likely candidate to become a great general. But it is a pity that his background is not good, and thus he did not have the opportunity. If not, Master Lance would not have been transferred to the Western region. That sounds powerful. Tang Tian scratched his chin and became excited. We came to the right place. If not, the monster army will be in trouble. We need to create some commotion and attract Lance's attention. A few days later, Ji Zhe, Fu Zhengji, and the rest were stunned. When Johnson heard those words, he almost spat out blood. He clutched his chest and died. He once had a military career and was an officer and had outstanding strength. If not, he would not have been hired by Mace Field Trading to be a guard. Brother Fu and I will go find out the location of the Western Traders' warehouse. Johnson volunteered. While Fu Zhengji stood up, Tang Tian was extremely pleased with himself for grabbing Johnson as a guide. It had to be said that Johnson played an irreplaceable role in this operation. For example, he suggested that they disguise themselves as small caravans to not attract attention. Johnson, who had worked in the Mace Field Tradings for many years, had a deep understanding of the various tradings, and he had constantly changed the symbol of the tradings. To Tang Trader to say, Tang Tian Li, he, Tang Tian, he, the monster army was, and they to say, Li to say to army, the Beto monster long, they say, they Li to say, one Tang, they won, they. The rumbling sounds of the monster army were drowned out by the torrential rain. They were like a stream that quietly entered the gorge. Along the way, Tang Tian and the rest, under Johnson's guidance, learned how to restrain their killing intent and disguise themselves as a merchant group. They swaggered into Blue Wind City and did not attract anyone's attention. Inside the courtyard, everyone was either meditating to recover their strength or wiping their weapons, waiting for the night to come. Only those important targets, upon success, would cause a commotion and attract the attention of the entire Western region. Ji Zhe's bewitching blade was too eye-catching. Upon making a move, it would be easily seen by others. Once the monster army was exposed, they would be surrounded since they were in the Honorable Marshal Continent's hinterland. When Uncle Bing told him to speed up the progress, all the time was exchanged with life. This sentence touched him greatly. I have bad news. Facing the generals in front of him, and Johnson, who had a look of worship and respect, Tang Tian's face was calm, and he spoke with the demeanor of a great general. If they were not careful and lost track of the Gold Continent bandits, then they might not be able to find them again, as the terrain was too complicated. Tang Tian had been bitterly thinking about it for the past few days. Very good, Johnson said. The Western traders have deep roots in the Western region, and after operating for so many years, they have close relationships with all the armies in the Western region, other than Master Lance. Master Lance had just been transferred to the Western region, but I never expected that the Western traders would be able to rope him in so quickly. Johnson knew that everyone was not familiar with the Honorable Marshall Continent, and said, "The Western traders are truly willing to pay a huge price this time. The two lieutenant generals have been invited by them." Lieutenant General Oliver is not surprised. He has a close relationship with the Western traders. But I never thought that General Lance would also be moved. After fighting so many battles, he was no longer the young man who did not know anything in the past. The 5 of them were extremely fast. They quickly drew 5 trajectories in the air and flew into the gorge like 5 sharp arrows. He even advised Tang Tian to give up on the unimportant targets to prevent himself from being exposed. Zhong Libai bit his lips, his face sunk. He was born as a military general and was extremely clear of the fact that they were a lone army deep in the hinterlands. Once they were targeted by the enemy, what would await them? There was a possibility that the Honorable Marshall Continent's armies were already mobilized. It was as if he could see a large net in front of the group waiting for him. Seeing the few flies in the sky descending in panic, Zhong Libai laughed silently. There was a gorge ahead. Zhong Libai needs protection. That was what the young man Tang Tian thought. Go ahead. Whoosh. Merchant groups like theirs could be seen everywhere. Upon rushing into the gorge, the 5 of their eyes constricted. The wind blocked the curtain of rain, causing the sky around them to darken. The Western traders must have a good relationship with the local security army, right? Tang Tian asked. The Western region's vast space and weak defense. To their small but powerful bandits, it was the most suitable battlefield. After racking his brains for so many days, he could not think of any clever ideas, but he thought of a simple and effective one. The sky was filled with dark clouds. Crackling sounds could be heard as thick lightning bolts formed a lightning net that rolled through the thick clouds. Every time that happened, a heart-palpitating aura would envelop the entire land. The sacred Saint Galaxy's energy concentration was much higher than Heaven's Road, and the might of the lightning was much stronger. Johnson, who had just finished gathering information and returned to the courtyard, had a bad expression. He continued, Lieutenant General Oliver and Lance have issued a joint order requesting for the various continents in the Western region to be on high alert and for unknown people to be investigated strictly. They also requested for the various garrisoned armies to be on high alert. As long as they discover the whereabouts of the Gold Continent bandits, they do not need to fight, but they need to keep an eye on them at all times. Zhong Libai did not tell Tang Tian about it, and Bing did not tell Tang Tian either, as it was something that Tang Tian had figured out himself. The Western region was not the flourishing area of the Honorable Marshall Continent, and there were no enemies around. Thus, the Honorable Marshall Continent did not have many troops stationed there. Out of the 12 lieutenant generals, only 2 were stationed at the Western region. Is this lance very strong? Fu Xiangji asked curiously. An inescapable net. It was not fancy, it was simple and effective, and the enemy would never expect them to be so daring. Set off. The gorge was called Bill's Great Gorge. It was majestic and precipitous, extending for over 1,000 li, with many branches that were connected to each other. Everyone's faces changed. The monster army had over 10,000 men, and it was extremely difficult to conceal their tracks. Now that the entire Western region had been mobilized by the 2 lieutenant generals, the situation immediately became grim. Let's go to the Western traders. Johnson thought for a moment. Blue Wind City's Western traders are rather large. If we suddenly attack, the possibility of success is very high. Tang Tian's powerful performance previously made Johnson admire Tang Tian from the bottom of his heart. When he heard that Tang Tian needed someone familiar with the Western region as a guide, Johnson agreed without hesitation. Especially when he saw Tang Tian pondering for the past few days, he became even more excited. His vision was completely white, and he could not even see his own fingers. Fu Xiangji Johnson, and the rest all nodded their heads. Johnson was filled with anticipation. He did not forget his own duty. The few black dots in the distant sky were like flies, making him feel uncomfortable. He finally realized the weakness of the monsters, which was that they lacked the corresponding methods to deal with the enemies in the sky. Such an irresponsible plan. Oh, that's not right. It definitely cannot be called a plan. Johnson swore on his military career that it was definitely not a plan. On the two sides of the cliffs, over 100 monsters suddenly soared into the sky like cannonballs being fired. The rain poured down. To deal with them, I need to rely on other conditions. Damn thunderstorm. Zhong Libai squinted his eyes. He had been racking his brains for the past few days to think of a way to deal with the stalkers. Zhong Libai had met with trouble. Johnson and Fu Zheng, she quietly left while the rest sat down to recuperate. They were currently staying in a large rented courtyard. This large courtyard was specially rented for trading groups to use and could accommodate a small-scale trading group with tall walls and 4 simple and crude buildings that could be used as sentry posts. When a trading group was outside, it was a taboo to mix with other trading groups, as it would easily cause trouble and was not safe. Johnson was in Tang Tian's hands for a long time and was disheveled for a long time. Although he did not meet any enemies for the past few days, but he could already smell the dangerous aura in the air and continuously changed his direction without any warning. I need to get rid of these annoying flies. The 5 scouts that were chasing realized that the monster army had entered the canyon and immediately followed up. All of them had the same thought: the Gold Continent bandits want to escape. The others all nodded their heads. The God Armor Army only had 200 men, and any random trading group had such a large number of guards, so no one would think of them as an army, and it was extremely easy for them to hide. We move out now. Such a powerful man. What other method will he think of? Chapter 849. Tang Tian, who was in the state of the God Armor, was expressionless. His heart was like an ancient well without any ripples. Everything around him was reflected in his heart like a lake. The flow of energy in the air, even the bugs that were crawling in the cracks of the wall, were all clearly seen. He became cautious. He squinted his eyes and observed his surroundings, but did not notice anything out of the ordinary. The Western Shang branch was flourishing, and the competition was extremely intense. Every step of promotion was extremely difficult. In the current situation, it was the easiest opportunity to be promoted. Suddenly, he stood up, and a dangerous aura floated in the air. In his vision, Tang Tian and the rest suddenly stopped. He was experienced and had chosen a good location. It was a tall building not far from the Western Trader's warehouse. It was a place that allowed him to overlook the entire battlefield, and if the enemy reinforcements came from other directions, he could easily discover them. Furthermore, the place was extremely hidden and was not easy to detect. But the tall building was similarly heavily guarded, and sneaking in took him quite a bit of effort. Blue Wind City's Western Traders. Johnson was half sprawled on the floor of the building. He did not look out from the window, as it would be too easy to be discovered. He dug a small hole in the wooden plank and observed from the hole. Long live the traders! In truth, it surprised him. It was an extremely shrewd and ruthless arrangement that perfectly utilized the terrain, and the soldiers that were deployed were extremely detailed, and their hiding positions were extremely ingenious. To them, it was an opportunity. He turned and smiled at Solomon. "I'll leave it all to you." But upon seeing Tang Tian and the rest stealth, Johnson knew how wrong he was. How is this something a military general with terrible tactics can do? Because of the severe banditry in the western region, the prices of the various mercenary groups had soared, and the lacerator's price was originally extremely high, but it had instantly doubled. But Ricky was still determined to hire the lacerators, and could finally sleep in peace. But very quickly, his gaze was attracted to Tang Tian And the rest. The sky slowly darkened, but Solomon did not move. He sat in an unassuming corner, hidden in the shadows. It was an extremely good hiding position, where the enemy would not be able to detect them, and if they were to encounter any sudden situations, he could easily launch a sneak attack. Whether it was moving forward or stopping, it was as clean as a knife, without the slightest bit of sloppiness. Tang Tian seemed to know where the danger was in advance, and he acted without the slightest hesitation. Their movements were silent, and their auras were restrained to the extreme. They were like wild beasts that were silently moving forward in the night. Johnson even saw Tang Tian and the others scuttling across the street behind a group of people without them noticing at all. Johnson felt that his impression of Tang Tian had been overturned once again. Everyone was filled with confidence. His spirit was suddenly shaken, and he hurriedly pulled himself together. He focused all his attention, and was barely able to see it clearly. He was secretly amazed. Tang Tian and the others had almost completely blended into the darkness. Even he, who already knew the attack route, almost didn't notice them. How could the enemy notice them when they were unprepared? Is there a situation? With a notorious reputation, one had to work harder, be more cautious, and be more careful in order to survive. Johnson was not a member of the God Armor Army, and he was unable to assimilate into the team, and not only would he not be of any use in battle, he might even be a burden. Johnson knew himself and took the initiative to request to be a sentry. Ricky came over to take a look and left satisfied. No one knew of the Lacerators' mercenary army's arrival, and even when they entered the city, they used the special passage of the trading organizations, so no one knew that the Lacerators had already entered the trading organizations. It was not strange, as military leaders who were known for their bravery were extremely common. The enemy's defense gradually became clearer in Tang Tian's heart. Tang Tian's state of mind remained calm. In his senses, there was someone in the shadows behind the wall who seemed to have sensed something. At the same time, Solomon, who was in the shadows behind the wall, suddenly felt his mind tremble. The Western traders' bodyguards looked at the Lacerators members in awe. They were expressionless, but their bodies were emitting dense, killing intent. Tang Tian suddenly stopped, and behind him, the 200 members all stopped at the same time and quietly hid behind him. They were like shadows in the night, melting into the darkness. Johnson did not understand. From his angle, he did not see anything out of the ordinary. Surprise flashed past Tang Tian's indifferent eyes, but it did not cause any ripples. To Tang Tian, the sudden appearance of a powerful person had become a part of the entire battlefield. The Lacerators who had completed their defense quietened down. They did not discuss or chat. They just quietly stood guard, their eyes filled with vigilance. As long as there was a slight movement, it would attract their attention. In the deep night, Blue Wind City's lights gradually dimmed, and the number of people on the streets gradually decreased. Lacerators! Oh my God, it's the Lacerators! His words were like a heavy bomb, causing all of the bodyguards to explode. He waved his hand, and the members behind him rushed in and started to take over the defense. The edge of the battlefield was like a ripple that continued to extend outwards. One by one, the extremely light breathing and the slow and undetectable heartbeat slowly became clearer in Tang Tian's heart. Johnson's eyes were wide open, filled with shock. If we were to say that everyone's fighting spirit had been roused by Clan Elder Ricky's words, then the appearance of the Lacerators' mercenary army had completely calmed them down. Instead, they were anticipating the arrival of the Gold Continent bandits, as it was practically giving them merits. Tang Tian's attention landed on the expert hidden in the shadows. For the other party to be able to sense a trace of danger, it meant that his strength was extraordinary. This point could be seen from the position that the other party was hiding in. The other party was extremely confident in his own strength. Previously, Tang Tian had displayed his tyrannical and unparalleled individual strength. And previously, when Tang Tian was not in charge of the battle plan, it left an impression on Johnson that Tang Tian's tactics were terrible. It was the first time that someone had sensed his arrival. Everyone knows about the recent matters. The organization has met with some trouble. But I believe that everyone has confidence in the organization. The organization has stood tall in the Western region for so many years and has met with many waves. So there is nothing to make a fuss about. Everyone knows the rules of the organization. And the more important it is, whoever is able to stand out, whoever is able to contribute to the organization will definitely reward them. Solomon was used to leading the troops. They were a mercenary army. And if the leader was unable to lead, then no one would be willing to risk their lives for you. As expected of the lacerators, they are truly strong compared to the protectors of the organization. The lacerators had dealt with many such situations. They were extremely experienced and did not take long to complete their preparations. The reverence in the eyes of the protectors increased the moment an expert made a move. They would know if they were real or not. He had entered the observation post in advance and patiently waited for Tang Tian and the rest to attack. But after waiting for half a day, there were still no signs of them, and just when he thought that the mission was canceled, he suddenly noticed an unremarkable black figure. Everyone, be alert! This was a killing move that he had set up. Clan Elder Rich's imposing voice caused everyone's heart to tremble, and the protectors on duty all straightened their backs. All of the protectors' faces turned red. Many of them had faces of disbelief. The Lacerators' mercenary army was one of the most famous mercenary armies in the honorable Marshall Continent. They were bloodthirsty and cruel, with extremely powerful fighting capabilities. They were famous for not keeping any captives, and any bandits that fell into their hands would all be beheaded. Over time, once they accepted a mission, the various underworld organizations would automatically avoid them. He was unsure. Am I mistaken? But I have never been in a normal situation. Under the awakened state of the god armor, his control over the entire battlefield had reached an astonishing level. Every path that he took was definitely the most optimal path. Shadows, buildings, all of them were used to their fullest potential. They were able to perfectly restrain their aura and use special techniques to eliminate sound. Even the flow of air was under their control. They used the opposite whirlpool, causing the air flow to become invisible and not spread out like ripples. Rich was extremely pleased. He laughed bitterly in his heart. His own conclusions had been overturned time and time again, and Tang Tian had become even more unfathomable in his eyes. In the darkness, a cold glint flashed past Tang Tian's eyes. He lightly exerted force with his toes, and his figure disappeared. At the same time, the 200 figures behind him also disappeared. Clan Elder Rich was extremely satisfied with the effect of his words. He paused for a moment, then raised his hand and signaled to a sinister-looking man beside him. Of course, the organization is never stingy with money, and the organization will not put everyone in danger. For that, the organization has spent a lot of money to hire the famous Lacerators mercenary army to help us. Many of the young men's eyes lit up, and their breathing became hurried. The Western traders were powerful and had deep roots in the Western region. All of the bodyguards were locals of the Western region, and were deeply aware of this. It was an elite group. Solomon said proudly, "Do not worry." A group of black figures quietly moved forward in the darkness. A group of 200 men was not considered large, but it was not small either. But the black figures in front of him were like a single entity. What was even more shocking was that their movements were as smooth as flowing water. They were extremely smooth, and the quick and efficient movements caused him to feel a chill in his heart. The feeling that everything was under his control made Tang Tian's movements extremely decisive. Tang Tian stood still like a statue. Ha! That's great. Gold continent bandits, come quickly. Under normal circumstances, the enemy's arrangements were impeccable. The man beside me is the leader of the lacerators, Mr. Solomon. He will be setting up the defenses. I believe that everyone will trust Mr. Solomon's professionalism. So I hope that everyone will cooperate well. Just like what Clan Elder Rich had said to the Western traders, it was just a small disturbance. No one believed that there would be any bandits that could truly shake the Western traders' rule in the Western region. Solomon enjoyed the gazes filled with reverence. He walked back and forth, not letting go of any details. He knew that the lacerators were hated by many. As long as they revealed any flaws, countless of enemies in the darkness would pounce on them and tear them to shreds. He knew that very well. Chapter 850. The blue wind city in the darkness was instantly lit up as though it was daytime. Johnson, who was on the tower, felt as though he had fallen into an ice cellar. His face was as white as paper. A name flashed past his mind: the Lacerators' mercenary army. Elites of such strength could only be found in one place, and that was Temple. In his vision, every light regiment was rapidly changing. The resonance between them and the light swords became even more intense. The killing intent in the air was increasing at an alarming rate, as though something dangerous was breaking out of its cocoon. Solomon's stunning performance today had caused a ripple to surface in his tranquil state of mind. Solomon's face changed. What was worse was that the concentrated light did not cause any damage to the enemy. Like a group of snakes dancing in the darkness, rays of silver light floated out. Solomon's eyes also released a silver light. He was like a snake king, releasing an ice-cold aura that caused people's hearts to palpitate. But no one saw the indescribable fear in Solomon's silver eyes. His first reaction was impossible. Without any hesitation, Tang Tian started to counterattack. The seemingly perfect resonance in front of him quickly broke down in his eyes, and one after another, invisible ripples were accurately captured. Tang Tian praised in his heart. It had to be said that the enemy had a profound understanding of energy resonance to be able to create such a unique resonance. The wall in front of Solomon crumbled silently. Solomon did not hold back once he made his move. He was prepared in advance, and the sudden burst of silver light did not affect his vision. 90% of the enemies in front of this move would be dazzled by the sudden strong light. But the intense sense of danger lingering in his mind made him not dare to stop, regardless of whether he had hit it or not. He retreated. The battle had just begun. He squinted his eyes again and released a strange hissing sound, like a poisonous snake in the darkness spitting out its tongue. SSSS. Tang Tian was surprised once again. Resonance. He felt an extremely intense resonance. The light sword in his opponent's hand had produced an intense resonance with the 10 light regiments around him. There was no need for them to clash with a tough opponent like the Lacerator for guerrilla warfare. What made everyone feel at ease was that the Lacerator's mercenary army looked to be filled with energy. They even used the powerful killing technique, light sword whale song, without hesitation. That red blade aura was very inconspicuous, but it was very strange. The silver threads of light flew towards him like snowflakes and entered the silver sword in his hand. An intense silver light covered the entire blade. The sharp and small blade disappeared. It was as if Solomon was holding a light sword. There was only one thing he needed to consider, and that was to complete the mission. A look of disbelief appeared on his face. Are the higher-ups going to take action against the Western traders? Solomon, who was moving at high speed, glanced out of the corner of his eye at the place where the concentrated light had just been bombarded. There was a huge gap, and the deep trench extended dozens of feet away. Along the way, there were only charred ruins. This completely subverted his understanding. It was actually the Lacerator's mercenary group. The time between the moment he sensed danger and the other party made their move was almost negligible. The faint sense of danger just now was like a weak flame in the darkness. But now, the other party's killing intent was almost tangible, like the sun in the darkness, so dazzling. If he knew that the Lacerator's mercenary group was stationed here, he would definitely think of a way to make Tang Tian cancel his plan. He was extremely vexed in his heart. Damn it, he did not discover the Lacerator's mercenary group at all in the day. His fatal oversight had led to a complete failure. He tiptoed. Under the guidance of the law threads, the God Armor Army became a group of shadows and instantly disappeared. The number of sentries varied, ranging from 10 to 50 to 60. All of their bodies lit up with silver light at the same time. The silver light on their bodies quickly extended to their surroundings and converged with the silver light on their comrades, transforming into an even bigger silver light regiment. Suddenly, he felt a cold intent in his heart. Who are these mysterious people? He felt that it was impossible. It was not that the other party's reaction was so fast, and that they thought of a way to break the resonance. What made him feel that it was impossible was that the other party's 200 attacks were of different colors and were obviously of different attributes. The silver light that flew over coincidentally converged into a bamboo basket-sized silver ball of light, and the sword blade that was pressing down was like a whip that struck the silver ball of light. The Lacerator's mercenary group's most famous army-killing technique, Light Sword Whale's Song. He knew how powerful the Lacerators were, and regardless of what others said, Mace Field Tradings had once fought with the Lacerators. He had a deep impression of the cold and ruthless mercenary group, especially their powerful fighting capabilities. In that mission, they did not even use the Light Sword Whale's Song or similar killing technique, and had already completed the mission perfectly. The heart-trembling, buzzing sound resonated throughout the entire Blue Wind City. That thought flashed past his mind, but he quickly calmed himself down. The fight between the higher-ups had nothing to do with him. Could it be a trap? The 16 light regiments were like 16 sound chambers, and the light swords in their hands were like the source of the sound. Their resonance continued to increase. What he did not expect was that the other party's target was actually him. How many armies can survive the Light Sword Whale's Song? Very powerful. Damn it. See, I missed. Bang. He did not have the time to think about such a problem. The killing intent was like a sword tip pointing at his forehead. The intense sense of danger caused Solomon's heart to palpitate. If it was any other military general facing such a sudden change, with such an intense killing intent, they would either be at a loss or their minds would be blank. When he was choosing the location, he had already chosen his path of retreat. Never think about victory. That was the conclusion he had obtained from countless of battles. His body moved like lightning, forming a Z shape in the air. It's all my fault. 16 sentry posts, 16 light swords, all of them resonated together. Among the people who were alarmed, there were some who recognized the Light Sword Whale's Song, and exclamations sounded out, but all of them were filled with joy. The famous Lacerator's mercenary group was stationed in Blue Wind City, causing the safety of Blue Wind City to increase greatly. The silver ball of light suddenly exploded. The resonance had reached an unprecedented level, and the frequency of the light sword in his hand had also reached the limit of his control. How can such a heterogeneous energy form a resonance? At the same time, the scattered sentry posts all lit up with silver light. The light sword in Solomon's hand trembled, and the 16 light regiments all trembled at the same time. 200 different colored light auras suddenly lit up in the air. With a thought, Solomon's figure did not stop at all. He moved as fast as lightning and entered the position he had long prepared. The moment he arrived, whoosh, he was surrounded by his subordinates. Gather the light. A silver light regiment formed by 50 sentry posts trembled, and a silver light beam gradually rose up from the light regiment. When the silver light beam was halfway up, everyone realized that it was a light sword. His silver eyes flashed with a look of madness. Solomon's back was drenched in sweat, but his sinister face was extremely sinister. "It's time." Sigh. They were filled with confidence and anticipation. Solomon's shout suddenly came out in the night, causing the Western trader's bodyguards to be at a loss. While the Lacerata's members instinctively leapt up, they had long held the most suitable weapons and swung them towards Solomon. How did he know I'm hiding here? Where did I reveal any flaws in my concealment? The enemy does not mind exposing himself at all. Jizay's eyes turned cold. His heart was annoyed. His blade that he was confident in actually missed. His heart palpitated, but his heart surged with a rarely seen excitement. It had been a long time since he had such an exciting feeling. The surging silver light beam was like a flood that had opened the floodgates, pouring out in front of him. A red blade aura brushed past his retreating body and swept past 2 Western traders' guards, causing 2 spurts of blood to fly out, but before they could disperse, they were strangely absorbed into the red blade aura. The remaining red blade aura quietly pierced into the wall, causing the wall to crumble into powder like a biscuit. There are no corpses. To be able to exchange blows with such an enemy, it is a rare opportunity. Come, let us see who has a deeper understanding of energy resonance. He was startled awake. His hands and feet were ice cold without any warmth. The enemy's 200 attacks are actually resonating. The enemy is using the resonance method to disrupt my own resonance. Solomon, who was famed for his ferocity, immediately displayed his outstanding side. Solomon's face did not have any panic, and unknowingly, a silver sword had appeared in his hand. His expression was solemn and solemn. The silver sword in his hand drew an arc like lightning. The silver sword light seemed to have an inexplicable attraction force. The silver light that was shooting through the sky deviated in the air and flew towards the silver sword in Solomon's hand, as if attracted by a magnet. In the darkness, a dozen silver light regiments suddenly lit up. Tang Tion's indifferent eyes lit up with a light. Temple, Solomon's nose immediately perspired with cold sweat. The citizens of Blue Wind City, who were alarmed by the commotion, had just woken up, and upon witnessing such a spectacular scene, all of them could not help but take in cold breaths, revealing looks of shock. When was the last time I was in such a difficult situation? He could not remember it anymore. He had not found any traces of the enemy, and the sense of danger that followed him like a shadow made him feel as though he was dancing on the tip of a blade, and could lose his life at any time. A glint flashed past Tang Tian's eyes, and with a thought, the 200 people around him bloomed like a flower, drawing an arc and drifting in all directions. Buzz. Solomon's eyes constricted, his heart trembling. Previously, the enemy's aura was so intense, but I was able to lock onto the enemy's position effortlessly. Could it be a feint? But the ripple disappeared in an instant, and he regained his composure. But there was never an attack that was invulnerable. Solomon's body trembled slightly, but there was no fear in his eyes. Tang Tian did not care about Jizay's feelings. The enemy's reaction was extremely fast, and the decisiveness of his counterattack and retreat surprised him. Ever since he had gained enlightenment on the god armor, he was like a god on the battlefield, and nothing could escape from his grasp. Countless silver lights that resembled arrows flew towards Solomon like rain, illuminating Solomon's figure that was hidden in the darkness. Solomon's heart relaxed. He finally felt safer. Upon receiving the order from the law threads, the 200 men took action at the same time. Gather Light was created by Solomon. It was extremely powerful and was able to form a fan-shaped attack. As long as the enemy was within the attack, they would not be able to escape. Are they really bandits? Impossible. It is impossible for there to be such powerful bandits. The enemy's understanding of energy resonance is definitely not below my own. This is definitely not something a bandit leader should have. Resonance. The resonance severely interfered with the surrounding energy, causing the energy in the space to stop. The light sword in his hand rose up inch by inch. His movements were extremely slow, as though the light sword in his hand was extremely heavy. Solomon's abdomen suddenly retracted, and the curved silver sword in his hand suddenly pressed down. Chapter 8:51. The other party was going to burst him. There were not many in the God Armor Army who trained in light laws, and the reason why they were able to imitate the energy undulations was because of the undulations from the law threads. At first, they felt that it was a novel experience. The clear, vibrating sound swept across the surface of the sea formed by the silver light. The originally calm sea of silver light suddenly became turbulent. The dazzling silver light had already connected into one, like a floating sea of silver light. The silver light was so intense that even from afar, everyone's eyes felt like they were being pricked by needles. While everyone was shocked, they were also filled with confidence. Tang Tian was in the middle of the crowd. The silver light around him was so dense that it was almost tangible. His body involuntarily trembled, and his breathing quickened. His eyes widened. This was an incomparably wonderful historical moment, and he did not want to miss a single detail. The scene in front of him was incomparably beautiful. The power of the light sword was close to the limit of his control. How could this be? Everyone was brimming with confidence. During this period of time, the wind and rain had caused everyone to be on tenterhooks. They were all hoping that the lacerators would emerge victorious. At this moment, the one who was most pleased with himself was undoubtedly Ricky. Hiring the Ripper required him to take a certain amount of risk. If nothing happened, and he spent such a huge sum of money for nothing, his mortal enemies would definitely make use of this to attack him. What welcomed the roar in his heart was a pair of extremely cold eyes. Even such an intense silver light could not conceal its existence. Solomon immediately sensed it, but he sneered in his heart, courting death. However, Tang Tian knew very well that it was impossible to be infinitely strengthened, but that was not the main point. This had already exceeded the scope of their daily training. The sea of silver light was too dazzling, and it also caused the area below to be covered in deep darkness. Come on. Solomon did not like to be controlled. He created the lacerators and quickly developed it into one of the most famous mercenary groups in the Honorable Marshall Continent. Mercenary armies held a low position in the Honorable Marshall Continent. As the Honorable Marshall Continent's army system was extremely mature, they had many of them, and their ranks were strict. The history of the Honorable Marshall Continent's expansion was a history of wars. The number of armies with outstanding achievements were as many as the hairs on an ox, and many of the silver grade armies had glorious pasts. Every army's killing moves were different. The military leaders were different. The soldiers were different. Naturally, their killing moves were also different. At this moment, he finally understood Tang Tian's intentions. A gold rank army killing move. In the entire Sacred Saint Galaxy, it was the center of attention. The 16 light swords felt his battle intent and trembled even more violently. Solomon suddenly saw his opponent's movements clearly. His body was like a bowstring. His fists were pulled back. Solomon had never raised the light sword whale song to this level. He felt that his body was about to be torn apart. As time passed, an indescribable fear slowly grew in his heart. His opponent was challenging him to a battle of control over the lightsaber whale song. He was overestimating himself. More importantly, he had picked the wrong enemy. To the God Armor Army that originated from the Sin domain, the resonance of energy from the perspective of laws was actually much simpler. Simulating energy was a basic skill that they had to practice every day after stepping into the sanctuary realm. His widened eyes were filled with shock, but following the change in resonance, they had no choice but to focus on capturing the undulations from the law threads, because the undulations were changing and becoming more and more intense. The multicolored light, auras, were gradually being dyed silver. In the eyes of outsiders, it was the unique might of the lightsaber whale song. But Solomon was extremely clear that it was not the enemy being corroded by the energy, but the enemy's energy undulation that was continuously approaching the lightsaber's energy undulation. If he was able to kill the bandits, the huge merit would be enough for him to rise a few more levels and enter the core circle of authority in the organization. His face was flushed red with excitement. It was something that he had fantasized about countless of times, but it was currently so close to him that it was within his reach. The might of army killing moves was also as different as heaven and earth. Thus there were strict classifications, from the most ordinary bronze rank to the silver rank, then to the gold rank, and the highest was the unique rank. The silver sea of light continued to rise at an astonishing rate. In such an environment, the position of the mercenary army could be imagined, as the majority of them became the subordinates of the rich and powerful organizations. The lacerators did not, because of Solomon, because of the lightsaber whale song. The initially heart-palpitating, rumbling sounds became softer and softer, until it completely disappeared. But the formless pressure became more and more substantial, causing the spectators to feel as though a boulder was pressing down on their hearts, causing them to feel an indescribable discomfort. The discomfort continued to increase, and many people could not take it and flew far away. In Temple, which was filled with talents, a gold rank army killing move was the threshold to becoming a powerful martial artist, and among the commoners, military generals who possessed a gold rank army killing move were even rarer, showing Solomon's talent. Then let me add some fuel to the fire. The god Armor Army's silver light became even brighter. They took the initiative to increase the resonance effect. Solomon, who held onto his sword with both hands, closed his eyes, his entire body and mind increasing the resonance. It was in this blind spot that a drop of perspiration flowed down Solomon's nose bridge. The enemy's energy resonance is truly unique. The most unique thing is that the enemy's resonance is not at a fixed frequency, but through the resonance, after strengthening, it will reach resonance again and become even stronger. Everyone's eyes were wide open. Their faces were filled with shock. The majority of them were filled with curiosity to be able to personally witness a gold rank army killing move. It was a rare opportunity. The dazzling silver light sword was extremely eye-catching in the darkness. The heart-palpitating rumbling sounds brought along a terrifying might that enveloped the entire city. The enemy's energy undulation was gradually approaching them. Light sword whale song, the lacerator's mercenary army's most reputable killing move, a gold rank army killing move. Light sword whale song was created by him. The silver light's energy undulation was extremely unique. The silver thread's energy undulation was constantly resonating and changing, thus forming the unique light sword whale song that was releasing the energy undulation. You want to use my ultimate technique to defeat me? What wishful thinking! The silver light in his vision was solemn and dignified, causing him to be extremely excited. Such a powerful might, who could block it? If not for Solomon's cold and murderous personality, and not being liked by Temple, he would have long been recruited into Temple. It was like an ancient, desolate beast that had awoken from its slumber and was ready to move. But what truly made Solomon fearful was that it was losing control. The surface of the silver light was rising at a speed visible to the naked eye. Solomon forced himself to calm down. The enemy actually thought of using such a method to avoid the damage from the light sword whale song. It is truly powerful. How is that possible? Inside the silver sea of light, everyone were like statues made of silver. All of them had solemn expressions. No one had any smiles on their faces. At the start, they were still calm, but as time passed, they became more and more strained. Solomon's fighting intent soared. The silver light in his eyes became even more intense. His other hand held onto the light sword, and he closed his eyes. I made the right bet. Solomon's thoughts seemed to have stopped. His mind was blank. He watched as the simple and unadorned fist struck empty air. Let's go to hell together. The vibration from the light sword in his hand became stronger and stronger. When the light sword started to resonate and release a sound that caused people's hearts to palpitate, the dazzling silver light was like a terrifying poison that started to spread at an astonishing speed. The 5 colored light auras on the 200 men's bodies were gradually corroded into silver. Very few people knew that possessing a gold rank army killing move was one of the conditions to become a lieutenant general. When the light aura dissipates, my dream will be realized. The resonance continued, and the silver light also started to change. The further it went, the stronger the silver light would become, and the burden on the soldiers would increase, and without special training, they would not be able to endure it. As long as the enemy could not endure it, they would reveal signs, and at that time, under the even more tyrannical silver light, the enemy's flesh and blood would instantly turn into ashes. As expected of a gold rank army killing move, the light sword in his hand had already become a light pillar. Solomon used all of his strength to hug onto it, as though he was hugging onto a berserk fierce beast, and blood leaked out of the corner of his mouth. The enemy is actually able to directly imitate it. It completely toppled all of his knowledge. How can they still persevere? What are they trying to do? A gold rank army killing move appearing on a mercenary army was something that had never happened before. The Lacerator's mercenary army's reputation soared. Army killing move was just a common term. It usually referred to those powerful and specific tactics and was the trump card of every army. In the Sacred Saint galaxy where armies ruled, the development of army tactics had a long history. Army killing moves were such products. These types of tactics were powerful to the point that they could turn the tides of a battle, but the conditions to execute them were harsh. Some of them would cause the soldiers to overdraft. Some would cause the military generals to bear an astonishing burden, and might even cause them to be injured. So unless it was a crucial moment, they would not be activated, and that was why everyone thought that the Lacerator's mercenary army was filled with energy. If he had not personally experienced it, he would definitely not believe that there was such a strange way of fighting. The God Armor Army in the silver light had a layer of mercury on their skin, making them look no different from the other small units of the Lacerator's army. Wait a minute. The silver light in the field became even more dazzling, causing the entire Blue Wind City to become as bright as day. Buzz. He wanted to make the resonance even more intense. A trace of killing intent flashed past his cold eyes. Once panic started, it was difficult to extinguish it, and he felt that the light sword in his hand was attacking him even more intensely. Not only did the light sword's silver light not harm the enemy, but it seemed to have found its own kind and started to fuse with the enemy's silver light. If this continues, in theory, it can become infinitely stronger. But how long can you guys last? Tang Tion's face was expressionless. The light pillar in his hand could explode at any moment. His heart was filled with despair, but the determination in his bones made him unwilling to fail. Everyone who witnessed the scene all sucked in cold air. They had never heard of such a powerful energy corrosion before. They could almost see the result. Once the silver light completely spread, it would mean the death of the bandits. What a terrifying light sword whale song. The first time the light sword whale song appeared, it had shaken the entire honorable Marshall continent. Chapter 852. He immediately retreated a large distance, which saved his life. We have already sent out scouts to patrol the skies above the main area. The Gold Continent bandits are powerful, but their flying capabilities are weak. We have the advantage in the air. As long as we lock onto the skies above the canyon, they will definitely not be able to escape from our eyes." They did not know what kind of uproar the battle would cause. At that moment, Tang Tian and the rest heaved a sigh of relief. Although they looked calm, it was actually extremely dangerous, and if they were slightly careless, they would have lost their lives. His mind became even clearer, and many things became clear, but he did not rejoice, but remained as calm as ever. The unprecedented concentration caused Tang Tian, who was in the state of God armor, to be extremely pure. Tang Tian extended his body. The 200 law threads connected to everyone were like 200 bowstrings that were slowly pulled back. The simple and unadorned punch hit empty air, similarly hitting the note of resonance. Johnson then realized that his legs were trembling. We have lost track of them. They had infiltrated into Bill's Great Canyon, and our men have also disappeared. It is highly possible that they have perished. Inside the silver light, Tang Tian and the rest were rushing out with all their might. The large meeting room was dead silent. Everyone was stunned by the news, and only Warren's dreamy voice could be heard. The silver light was like water. It ignited upon contact. "My apologies. No one is to disturb us during the military meeting." Only until now, when he saw the exhausted people and the silver light that lit up the night sky, did he finally believe that they had truly won. Oh my God! That is truly terrible news. Even if they flew over 50 kilometers away, they would still be able to see the silver light in the night. Everyone became quiet. The silver light that was gushing out was extremely eye-catching in the night, and it was obvious that Blue Wind City was already a living hell. Blue Wind City's branch had invited the Lacerators to help, but who knew that they would be ambushed that very night? The Lacerators used the Light Sword Whale song, but all of them died. Blue Wind City was affected and was completely erased. To be able to reach such a position, none of the military leaders were useless. When he saw the Lacerator soldiers being engulfed by the silver light, an indescribable fear took over every part of his body. However, it also gave him a glimmer of hope. The situation was different from what he had expected. He muttered to himself, "The formless net was the law surface. Only then would silver light treat them as one of its kind, and they would not be harmed. As long as there was the slightest mistake, the silver light would become fatal. Perhaps he could use the Shun equipment to escape, but Jize and the others would be swallowed by the silver light. Who? At that time, he held his head with both hands and let out an unconscious sigh. When he found out about the Light Sword Whale song, he thought that Tang Tian and the others were dead for sure. How many armies can survive a gold rank army killing technique? Perhaps Tang Tian could rely on his abnormally strong personal strength to survive, but the others definitely had no chance of survival. They had to synchronize their energy undulations with the silver light. The power of the silver light exceeded Tang Tian's expectations. He focused all his attention and tried his best to simulate the frequency of the silver light. The silver light that had gone out of control had also gone out of control. It was different from its previous stability. It had become unpredictable. Solomon's last thought was the endless silver light. The silver light that he was once extremely familiar with had engulfed him. Clan Elder Warren, you cannot go in. Master is currently holding a military conference. The group of people did not dare to stop. They flew at full speed, and only stopped after flying over 50 kilometers away. Tang Tian suddenly realized, law surface, we have truly won. Oliver nodded his head in satisfaction. His subordinates' reactions were not slow, and they were extremely experienced, able to grasp the opponent's weakness. Don't worry about them, Oliver said slowly. Leave this place. Clan Elder Warren's face was pale white with a trace of fear. His lips trembled. "Master, not good, not good." It was this trace of hope that made him not flee, but chose to persevere, until he saw Tang Tian, and the rest bringing along a silver light and rushing out from the sea of silver light. He could not believe his own eyes. Oliver's eyes flashed with a gloomy look. Bill's Great Canyon's terrain was extremely unique. It spanned over 1,000 li with countless of branches and dark holes. It was definitely a good place to hide. Oliver said indifferently. The dissatisfaction in his eyes was quickly concealed. "Yes." His subordinate hesitated for a moment, then said, "The Western traders are pressing us more urgently." Beside him, everyone looked at Blue Wind City in the silver light, all of them in a daze. Everyone was still immersed in the fear of surviving the calamity when they suddenly saw their master suddenly falling down. They were all startled. Luckily, Jize's reaction was the fastest. His figure flashed and caught Tang Tian. Tang Tian's face changed. The silver light's irregular undulation had become extremely clear. A commotion came out from outside, causing Oliver to frown. An intense dissatisfaction surfacing in his heart. The Western traders were becoming more and more outrageous. To actually be so arrogant and despotic. Oliver knew that he was able to stay in his position as a lieutenant general for so many years, although he had the help of the Western traders. But more importantly, he did not make any mistakes. Solomon only felt as though he was struck by lightning. Before he could react, the light pillar that he was holding onto suddenly lit up with a silver light aura. When Tang Tian finished speaking, his vision turned black, and he lost consciousness. "Don't be anxious. The enemy is alone, and we have the initiative. As long as they reveal themselves, we can surround them at any place. I have an urgent matter to report to Master. The walls that were able to withstand the attacks of warship weapons, the layers of defense that were built with money, were like paper in front of the silver light, and were instantly destroyed. But the changes that happened next caused him to be dumbstruck once again." Oliver's heart jumped. He had a bad premonition, and immediately asked, "Clan Elder Warren, what happened to you? What happened?" Clan Elder Warren's entire body trembled and said, "Blue Wind City. Blue Wind City is gone. What if Tang Tian and the rest won?" There were no big battles in the Western region, but he had performed extremely well in suppressing the bandits, and that was the true crux. As long as he performed well, his position would be stable. Less credit? What does that matter? Isn't the head of the 5 great generals, Mu Jixia, the same? The rest of them immediately followed Johnson and flew out of the city. "No, I have an urgent matter. I need to see Master Oliver immediately. Blue Wind City is completely erased." The silver light that was out of control was like a collapsing ocean that flowed wantonly. Gone. Oliver was startled, but in the next moment his expression became fierce. "What do you mean by gone? Clan Elder Warren, explain it to me clearly." Jize and the rest immediately felt the change in Tang Tian. Their originally sluggish footsteps suddenly became smooth. They were like fishes living in the silver light. They were extremely compatible with the silver light, as though they had become one with it. Bang! Inside the silver sea of light, a group of figures soared into the sky, bringing forth silver flames. All of them are gone." Clan Elder Warren spoke as though he was in a dream, his eyes filled with fear. The silver light was a high-grade energy that had been strengthened by the resonance of the light sword whale song and was filled with astonishing destructive power. The Western traders' guards were the first to be engulfed, and before they could even make a sound, they had melted into the silver light. The lacerators released dazzling silver light from their bodies. The silver light pierced through their skin, revealing their bones. The silver flames combusted from their bodies, causing them to wail and wail. They struggled with all their might, but the silver flames had already seeped out of their bodies, causing them to be engulfed in flames. the wails gradually died down, and they gradually became faint in the silver light until they disappeared. The bad feeling in Oliver's heart became even stronger, and his voice became sharp. "Clan Elder Warren, what exactly happened?" With a groan, he pulled everyone and rushed out. As long as he was stable, not only would the Western traders not dare to fall out with him, they would definitely rope him in. Lieutenant General Oliver listened to his subordinate's report expressionlessly. He was 54 years old, dressed in a neat and tidy military uniform. His hair was slightly white, and his face that was maintained well still had traces of the hardships he had gone through in the past. To be able to rise to the ranks of lieutenant general in Temple, the competition he had experienced was extremely cruel. All of them are gone. With the threat of death and unprecedented concentration, Tang Tian entered a strange state. Oliver fell to the ground, his face as white as paper. They had killed the lacerators under the gold-rank army killing technique. Just at that moment, the pale-faced Johnson flew over and said, "Over here." Oliver spoke out indifferently. His voice was low and powerful, causing people to unknowingly believe in him. Temple never lacked powerful military generals. They killed the lacerators' Blue Wind City. Blue Wind City. Clan Elder Warren trembled even more. When he realized that Tang Tian had fainted, his face changed and anxiously shouted, "Leave this place." His subordinate immediately went to open the door, and a figure immediately rushed in. And as long as he lost the battle, his seemingly stable position would quickly crumble. Countless people were eyeing his position. There were only 12 lieutenant generals, and if he wanted to go up, someone had to give up their position. Although he had a close relationship with the Western traders, but he was never their puppet. The cooperation between him and the Western traders was just to obtain what they needed. As for how they fought, the Western traders could not interfere with him. Lacerators? Oliver's eyes twitched. Where did the lacerators come from? But the words that came after made him panic. He stood up and bellowed, "What's wrong with Blue Wind City?" Time seemed to have slowed down. The silver light around him, the frequency of the undulations became clearer in Tang Tian's eyes. It was so clear that he could even see the dazzling and dangerous silver light, an invisible net that was constantly undulating. When Oliver saw Elder Warren, he couldn't help but be taken aback. Is that still Clan Elder Warren? His hair was white, his face was filled with wrinkles, as though he had aged more than 10 years. "Let him in." Everyone looked at each other. An indescribable fear filled every corner of their bodies. He had fought with the lacerators before, and had seen the light sword whale's song, but the energy undulations that continued to rise, as well as the silver sea of light that surpassed his imagination, caused him to feel instinctive fear. Oh my God! As they flew higher and higher, the silver light and flowing flames were like raindrops sliding down a lotus leaf, sprinkling into a silver rain. It was a very beautiful sight. Chapter 8:53. All of the structures had disappeared, and there was only one possibility. They had been destroyed by the energy. He was extremely glad that they did not escape. There was only one reason why they did not escape after Tang Tian fainted. He had not woken up. All of them were elites among elites, true killing machines. They had terrifying strength and were cold and emotionless. They obeyed orders unconditionally and did not fear death. Yes, countless figures ran. Johnson and the rest disguised themselves as a small merchant group and did not stand out in the crowd. When everyone noticed the battle, they were already enveloped by the silver sea of light, and no one could see them clearly. The generals who had just lost their support immediately reignited their fighting spirit. Charles praised, "Solomon is dead, but they are still able to escape. His strength is truly unfathomable. I am now curious. How did the Western traders offend such a powerful man? Furthermore, such a powerful expert should not be a nameless person. It truly makes me excited." All of this information was not a secret. and Johnson did not need to spend much effort to obtain it. Glancing at the surroundings, there were soldiers everywhere, and it was heavily guarded. Not only that, all the roads leading to the nearby regions were sealed, and an inescapable net was set up. The Banner of Knights was not an ordinary army, but was the core strength of Temple. The Banner of Knights had never recruited from the outside world, and would select young children from all over the place to groom them from young. All of these children had to undergo extremely harsh training from young, and face extremely cruel competition, with layers upon layers of elimination and selection. Charles stopped in his tracks and suddenly said, "At such a crucial time for the Southern expedition, such a vicious thing actually happened in our borders. It is unforgivable." Charles retracted his smile. His handsome face revealed a formless might. "Remove Oliver from his duties. All the armies under him will be temporarily under me. The rest of them will not be changed and await further orders. Send people to escort Oliver to Temple and accept the interrogation of Temple's clan elder." He and Fu Zhengji looked at each other and saw the worry in each other's eyes. Tang Tian had not woken up, and without a leader, everyone was at a loss as to what to do next. Oliver and Lance, who were stationed in the western region, received unprecedented criticism, and Temple requested for them to immediately find the culprit. Not only that, Temple had even sent out a specialized investigation group to investigate the matter. Charles' face turned cold. With an unprecedented seriousness, he bent down and used his hand to touch the ground. It was very hard, just like touching glass. This was the result of the super high temperature melting the rocks on the ground, forming something similar to glass. Sophie did not turn her head and coldly said to the people behind her, "Stay alert." The fanaticism in Charles's eyes disappeared, and he smiled warmly again. "You're right. Let's go." This order would be sent as soon as possible, and Oliver's fate would be decided. All of them were citizens of Blue Wind City that had escaped from Blue Wind City. Sophie spoke out coldly. "Gold rank army killing moves do not have such power." "Then I guess he will feel the pinch." Charles smiled and said, "As you said, he will lose his salary for 3 years. The one who came to report was the captain of Blue Wind City's local guards. He had a fat physique, and upon seeing so many important figures, he could not stop sweating. However, he also knew that if he didn't perform well now, he would only be in a worse state. Therefore, even though he was nervous and trembling a little, he still described the situation. "Yes," someone in the darkness answered. The fatty did not understand the profoundness of the situation, but upon hearing the fatty's description, Sophie and the rest understood what had happened. A look of surprise surfaced on Charles's face. Blue Wind City was completely in ruins. All of the buildings were destroyed. There were no broken bricks or tiles, no broken walls. Blue Wind City's original location was empty. It was an endless charred ground, with only irregular pits. All of the pits were of different depths, and were densely packed together, like a beehive. "Yes," Sophie reminded, "be careful of his soldiers. There are only 100 to 200 of them, but the energy resonance produced was able to cause Solomon's light sword whale song to lose control." A group of people walked on top of the ruins. Sophie held onto her sword and walked beside Charles. Charles frowned. "The light sword whale song is a gold rank army killing move, right? In this matter, Oliver's responsibility is even greater. Lance has just been transferred over. It can be considered an undeserved calamity." The one who spoke was a young and handsome man. He was dressed in a flawless white robe. His golden hair was like a lion's, and his light blue pupils had an indescribable charm. The Battle of Blue Wind City shook the entire Sacred Saint galaxy. Charles said to the fatty, "Describe the scene to me again." The silent troops behind her were like flowers scattered by a goddess. They formed over 100 beautiful golden arcs in the sky and scattered to every corner of Blue Wind City. Go and see the scene. Charles did not speak anymore. Energy, resonance, the banner of knights. When the generals who were welcoming them saw the golden-armored warriors, all of their faces turned pale white. 3 years, Sophie said coldly. Yes, the fatty immediately nodded his head. Sophie's tone was ice-cold, filled with killing intent. The enemy used energy resonance to continuously strengthen Solomon's light sword wail song, causing it to break through the critical point, causing it to collapse. They never thought that they would be able to escape from capture. Who knows the situation at that time? Yes, all of the generals replied in unison. When the fatty finished, he waved his hand, and the fatty immediately retreated. Charles revealed a satisfied look. I need generals with fighting spirit and ability. I hope that all of you do not disappoint me. After speaking for so long, the fatty finally calmed down. He regained his usual eloquence and described the situation vividly. Upon receiving the news, Temple was enraged. Temple's actions were swift and decisive. The legendary number 1 elites of Temple, the banner of knights. Sophie did not care about the excited Charles. She turned and ordered coldly, "Increase the search. We cannot let go of a single inch of grass." All of their faces were pale, their scalps went numb, and their bodies trembled. The scene of Lieutenant General Oliver being escorted away was still fresh in their minds, and only then did they truly understand how furious Temple was with this matter. An indescribable light aura flashed past Charles's eyes. Solomon most probably did not expect that the opponent would use his most proficient domain, and with his ultimate technique, he would be easily killed. There is always a taller mountain. This person's understanding of energy resonance far surpasses Solomon. That is not a reason, Sophie said coldly. She knew that Charles admired Lance more. Sophie immediately understood Charles's determination to get rid of Oliver. She did not have the slightest bit of sympathy and said simply, "Oliver needs to take responsibility for this." Noticing their fear, Charles smiled and said warmly, "It has already happened. Lieutenant General Oliver made a mistake. Temple will be lenient. But it is not over yet. All of you are Temple's most trusted backbone. I hope that all of you can cooperate with each other in the upcoming operation and display your usefulness and wipe away this humiliation. Temple will never mistreat those who have done meritorious service. If any of you can do something, I will personally report to Temple for you." "Of course." Charles shrugged his shoulders, his face revealing a warm smile. "That is why we are here." It is said that Oliver lost the Gold Continent bandits. Temple's personally trained lieutenant general actually lost track of a group of bandits. It is truly a disgrace. Could it be that all of his energy has been spent on how to earn money from the Western traders? Charles face-bombed in distress. His own subordinate was always so serious. "All right, since I am used to it, if I do not give an answer, she will definitely be serious to the end," he said helplessly. "A year of forfeiture, what do you think? Willpower, talent, diligence. The final victor would have the qualifications to enter the banner of knights." Although there were not many casualties among the citizens, but in the history of the honorable Marshall Continent, there had never been a city that was wiped out, especially when they were at the critical juncture of the Southern expedition. For such a terrible thing to happen, Temple's anger could be imagined. Johnson saw the people all over the mountains and plains, and for some reason, he relaxed. One after another, tall and sturdy golden figures landed on the ground. Bang, bang, bang. When he heard that the silver light was getting stronger and forming a sea of light, Charles seemed to have thought of something and was shocked. His identity was extremely respected. He was the current sacred son of Temple, Charles. A warship with Temple's insignia swept across the sky at an astonishing speed. And when he heard the last part, the sea of silver light had gone out of control, and silver flames surged out from the lacerators' bodies. Charles's expression became extremely solemn. At that moment, the unconscious Tang Tian finally regained consciousness and slowly opened his eyes. But he thought that the reason for Blue Wind City's disappearance was the light sword whale song. "Where's Lance?" Sophie asked coldly. When they arrived at Blue Wind City, they were welcomed by Oliver's subordinates. All of them had worried looks, as though they were worried for their future. Oliver had already been escorted back to Temple, and he did not dare to struggle. "Let's go down," Charles said, and took the lead to jump down. Beside him floated a female spirit general. She had a devilish figure, a pure and holy face, so beautiful that it was suffocating. She was clad in a gold armor, and behind the armor was a pair of snow-white energy wings, making her look like a legendary angel. Layers of beautiful scales weaved into a pair of golden gloves. Holding onto the hilt, she stood upright. The large sword was as tall as her chest. The blade was wide. The sword hilt could be held with both hands. The sheath was covered with profound and beautiful patterns, with the sun pattern that symbolized light being the most eye-catching. Sophie then turned and spoke coldly to Charles. "As a sacred son, you should come out and comfort the citizens." The fear on everyone's faces immediately disappeared, and their low morale was roused. "That's right. The matter is not over yet. If we can achieve great merits in front of Sacred Son Charles and leave a deep impression on him, our future will definitely be bright." In truth, other than the Western traders and the Lacerators mercenary group, Blue Wind City's casualties were negligible. The commotion of the battle awoke everyone from their dreams. The light sword whale song's resonance became stronger and continued for a long time. The silver flames that formed at the end had astonishing destructive power, but its speed was not fast, giving everyone time to escape. The orders that everyone had received previously only stated that Sacred Son Charles would lead the investigation team. No one had expected that Sacred Son Charles would actually lead the Honorable Marshal Banner of Knights. No one knew that they were the culprits that wiped out Blue Wind City, and in everyone's minds, even if the bandits were still alive, they would have long escaped. Why would they stay there? Yes. Chapter 854. "Carl, I never thought that you would come as well." Charles smiled and welcomed him, as though he had met an old friend. Temple's intentions were clear. They wanted to eliminate the bandits in the shortest time possible. Johnson sighed. Carl immediately spoke up. "Your Highness, rest assured, this matter was started by the Western traders, and the Western traders will not shirk their responsibility. The new city construction plan will be submitted to Temple soon, and all of the expenses will be taken care of by the Western traders, and the Western traders will bear at least half of the expenses." Sophie stood by Charles's side, her gaze sweeping across the surroundings from time to time, causing an undetectable undulation to spread out with her as the center. Charles revealed a satisfied look. The reconstruction of Blue Wind City had to be carried out. It concerned Temple's face, and at the same time, it concerned his own. Following that, Tang Tian was shocked by his own thoughts. The Honorable Marshal Banner of Knights did not have many people, but every single one of them were extremely powerful, brimming with destructive radiant aura. Every single one of them was like a sun that was covered in armor, containing an endless destructive power. Charles knew his knight commander's temper, and did not mind. His gaze landed on the big bearded man walking towards him. The boorish-looking man who looked like a bandit was the highest authority of the Western traders, Carl. Charles's gaze landed on a transport ship not far away, and chuckled. "The people from the Western traders are here." Temple is truly angry this time. The Sacred Son and the Honorable Marshal Banner of Knights are the true core of Temple and hold important positions in Temple. Ordinary matters will definitely not require the Sacred Son and the Honorable Marshal Banner of Knights to move. For some reason, Tang Tian paid close attention to Johnson's casual rumors. In the Sacred Saint galaxy, only the Honorable Marshall Continent was researching on spirits and had already achieved substantial breakthroughs. The Great Sun was extremely bright, overbearing, and oppressive. Spirit generals were extremely rare in the Sacred Saint galaxy, and such a powerful female spirit general was even more shocking. She was the strongest spirit general that Tang Tian had ever seen. Even Sima Zhao's Magatama could not compare to her. His gaze had only landed on her for a moment, but it had already caused her to be on guard. And the undulation that she released after that, no one else noticed it, but Tang Tian was shocked. Being swept by the master's gaze, Johnson subconsciously felt as though he was being seen through. Temple is wise. Your Highness is wise. Carl revealed a look of gratitude. Kill Charles and the Knights Templar. Sophie's scout wave was superb, and even the slightest change could not escape her eyes. After saying that, Sophie turned around and left. Could he defeat Sophie? Tang Tian was not confident. He could not help but sigh. In this team, the role of an adult was irreplaceable. Charles had an enchanting smile on his face. His words were like a spring breeze. It is our duty. Temple has the responsibility to protect everyone's property. Carl, you don't have to worry about it. An extremely daring idea popped into Tang Tian's mind. However, His Excellency's eyes were unusually bright. Even the darkness of the night could not obscure them. His gaze landed on the master, and when he met the master's eyes, he could not help but lower his head. When Xiao Chun woke up this time, his aura had undergone a huge change. The powerful aura from before had disappeared, becoming extremely ordinary. If he were to be thrown into a crowd, he would not be eye-catching at all. Sophie scanned the area again. Still nothing. There was one more person. Tang Tian didn't think so. Heaven's road martial techniques. Johnson had also noticed the commotion in the distance. When he looked over, his face changed, and he exclaimed softly, "Sacred Sun! The banner of knights!" Charles chuckled. Sophie was just so inflexible. He teased, "You have to get used to us being the center of attention. How can we not attract attention? And you're so beautiful as a fairy. It is normal for people to be unable to control themselves. Did you discover anything?" It was true that the matter in Blue Wind City was huge, but the reason why they sent out the Sacred Sun and the Banner of Knights was because Temple did not have any other heavyweight powerhouses. Jia had to oversee the situation, and the other 4 great generals were not around. Thus Temple would brazenly send out the Sacred Sun and the Banner of Knights. Temple also understood that at the critical juncture of the southern expedition, maintaining the peace within their borders was the most important thing. Tang Tian looked at the group of people in the distance with interest and asked Johnson, "Who are they?" "Relax, Sophie." Charles chuckled. "Do you think they will stop here?" But from the feedback, they did not find any suspicious people. Tang Tian, who possessed extraordinary intuition, felt that the man in front of him was not simple at all. Sophie retracted her gaze and did not say a word. Her impression of the Western traders was terrible. Others might need to consider the financial groups like the Western traders and could provide them with help, but Sophie did not care about that and naturally did not need to give them any face. That is definitely bad news. Although he did not know the name of the undulation, but Tang Tian recognized it with one look and secretly praised it for being powerful. The undulation was like a bait and could easily cause the energy in their bodies to react. If not for their zero-energy bodies, they would have been exposed. "Your Highness." Carl immediately ran in front of Charles and bowed respectfully and spoke with fear. "I have caused so much trouble for Temple and even caused Your Highness to personally come. This lowly one truly deserves to die." Charles spoke warmly. "The Western traders are the role models of the various continents in the Western region and are also the pillar I hope that the Western traders can be a role model. Blue Wind City has been destroyed, so the construction of a new city cannot be delayed. On this matter, Temple cannot keep an eye on it. I hope that the various trading organizations can work together and rebuild the Grand Blue Wind City. He never thought that the commander of the Honorable Martial Banner of Knights would actually be a female spirit general. The Sacred Saint Galaxy was not conducive to the formation of living spirits, but if living spirits were to be born, it would be extremely easy for them to grow stronger in the Sacred Saint Galaxy. And if the spirit general was extremely powerful, then the speed of improvement would be extremely fast, as the energy in the Sacred Saint Galaxy was too dense. Sima Zhao's Magatama was the same. She seemed to change every day. The strength of the Honorable Martial Banner of Knights did not exceed Tang Tian's expectations. His gaze landed on the sacred son Charles, who had a smile on his face the entire time and looked no different from an ordinary person. "I will go patrol." Charles's smile was warm and friendly and extremely approachable. He consoled the old, caressed the children's heads, and encouraged them warmly, and asked them what problems they encountered and what they needed him to do. No one expected that the noble sacred son would be so humble and friendly, and in the blink of an eye, he had subdued everyone. Everyone's gaze towards him were filled with respect and support. Many of them were kneeling on the ground and crying. "Not at the moment," Sophie said coldly. She felt that it was strange. She had truly felt a gaze on her, but when she turned around, she did not notice anything. Out of caution, she had even released the scouting ripple. There was still Sophie. If the Honorable Martial Banner of Knights were like the sun that was filled with destructive power, then Sophie was like the deepest darkness in the sea of energy, not revealing any chi. The scouting ripple was a type of probing martial technique and was extremely sensitive to energy undulations. For outstanding generals and powerful martial artists, the ability to seize and control energy was a kind of instinct. Once the scouting ripple swept past them, it would immediately produce an extremely minute feedback, which could reflect the opponent's strength to a certain degree. If Sophie was truly created by Temple, then Temple's research on spirits is much deeper than what I can imagine. "Someone was sizing us up just now," Sophie said coldly. Tang Tian's eyes constricted. He suddenly thought about Sima Zhao's Magatama. In other words, Magatama was created. Could it be that the Honorable Martial Continent has grasped such a technique and to be able to create such a powerful spirit general? That is truly terrifying. His smile became even more amiable. With Carl taking charge of this matter, I can be at ease. The imposing aura from the Honorable Martial Banner of Knights was even more terrifying, to the point that it actually caused people to feel suffocated. The gold armor on their bodies seemed to have enveloped their imposing aura, but it would occasionally reveal a trace of tyrannical destructive aura, causing people to tremble involuntarily. Were they created? Is it a misconception? When Tang Tian woke up, everyone immediately found their backbone, and all the confusion and hesitation disappeared overnight. Johnson heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. The change in the atmosphere made him feel that it was miraculous. All the people who looked like frosted eggplants for the past few days were now brimming with energy, their faces filled with ominous glints as they walked back and forth, as though they had excess energy, and were looking for a fight. Tang Tian did not have any strength in his body, but he was still in high spirits. His clear eyes were like stars, extremely bright. In the distance, Tang Tian listened to Johnson introducing the sacred son Charles and the Honorable Martial Banner of Knights. His gaze would occasionally land on the Honorable Martial Banner of Knights donned in gold armor, and his heart trembled. All of the Honorable Martial Banner of Knights that were wrapped up tightly, all of them emitted a terrifying aura. The terrifying aura was somewhat familiar, causing him to think about the saints in Heaven's Road. The specialty of Heaven's Road's martial techniques was the refinement of energy, which the Sacred Saint Galaxy did not possess. There were many martial techniques in Heaven's Road that were not suitable here, but the temple had many geniuses, and many of them had improved on these martial techniques, and the Scouting Ripple was one of them. Sacred son Charles comes from a prestigious family. His father is the youngest clan elder of Temple, and his mother is the daughter of the previous great clan elder. Ever since he was born, he received blessings, and his talent is unparalleled. He is hailed as the greatest discovery of Temple in the past 100 years, and his every word and action is closely watched. Sacred son Charles has displayed intelligence beyond his age since young, and at the age of 15, with the unanimous approval of the clan elder, he was appointed as the current generation's sacred son. Master Sophie's background is extremely mysterious. Some people say that she is the immortal spirit of the deceased Holy Maiden and is protecting sacred son Charles. But this subordinate had unintentionally heard of a rumor saying that Master Sophie was created. But this rumor is too shocking. Her hand did not leave the sword hilt and was extremely cautious. Chapter 8:55. Seems like the opponent is trying to disguise himself, Mu Ji Xia thought. Mu Ji Xia's eyes lit up. That's right. A unified savage continent is also not beneficial to the Gold Continent. It was highly possible that the Gold Continent could see the danger of the savage continent's unification and wanted to kill that woman. However, Tang Tian's achievements made him feel very surprised and shocked. In the faraway Shang continent, Xiao Er, who was immersed in his work, seemed to have heard someone reminding him and raised his head in a daze. But he never thought that not only did he not find any traces of the enemy, he would even encounter a mechanical army in the savage continent. The more he thought about it, the more it made sense. However, the cautious Mu Ji Xia did not let down his guard. He carefully observed the other party. When he noticed the opponent's war flag, he was a little surprised. It was an eye-catching bronze cross. This thought flashed through Mu Ji Xia's mind, causing his expression to become even more serious. He knew what that meant to the honorable martial continent. As long as the savage continent got rid of that woman, they would be able to solve the root of the problem, and the southern region would not be a threat. Other than the honorable martial continent, there was another powerhouse that was equally strong and united, and that was the Gold Continent. But to a thick-skinned and black-hearted guy like Old Tang, such mockery was useless. He was ashamed for 2 seconds before he adjusted himself and said proudly, "He's still my son. The student has surpassed the master. It can be seen how wonderful my arrangements were back then. How far-sighted. Old commander, do you know what a man's strongest weapon is?" But the truth was right in front of him. When would he be able to end his life as a laborer? At this moment, little fool missed Tang Tian's return very much. However, why did it feel a little familiar? I seem to have heard of it somewhere. The warrior's heart that was filled with years of rust suddenly began to move slowly. The rust rustled and fell off. The sharpness was like snow, and the heat was like a soldering iron. He had been bitterly searching for the Perseus king court. The legendary goddess of war was the key to unifying the savage continent. Mu Ji Xia had long made up his mind. Regardless of the price he had to pay, even if he had to die in the savage continent, he would kill that woman. As long as they killed that woman, the newly united savage continent would immediately crumble and break apart. Mu Ji Xia was extremely familiar with the flag of the Gold Continent Elite Army, but he had never seen this flag before. What a strange name. Mu Ji Xia had never heard of such a strange name. The reason why he sealed Little Fool in the palace was to give him enough time to grow. On the other hand, Tang Tian, who only had a bright side, was naive and optimistic. He did not have too many thoughts, so it was not easy for him to arouse the vigilance of others. This was a kind of protection for him, allowing him to grow up safely. Inside the Gemini throne, A face that resembled Tang Tian, but was slightly more handsome, revealed a slightly mocking smile. His sideburns were grizzled, and his gorgeous black robe was meticulous, giving off a noble aura. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, Mu Jixia wouldn't have believed it. His weathered face was now solemn. Mu Jixia was puzzled. After entering the Sacred Saint Galaxy for so many years, their leader was born in the Gold Continent and had a high position. Although he returned to the Gold Continent as a spirit general, he still had a huge reputation. The two of them created such an army. The gold state pattern could greatly increase the strength of the armor, greatly increase the affinity with energy, and greatly increase the user's control over energy. It could also greatly increase the performance of the mechanical puppets. But its craftsmanship was extremely complicated, and its cost was extremely high. Only the top-level mechanical puppets would be willing to use it. It was impossible for such a grade of mechanical puppets to appear in the market, if not for the Honorable Martial Continent's intelligence system being outstanding. Mu Jixia would not have recognized it. Mu Jixia also knew that mechanical puppets with gold state patterns were used by the highest level of guards in the Gold Continent. Why isn't Crazy Tang back yet? What terrible luck! Your crow's mouth is working. Who knew that the development of the situation was out of his expectations? Little Fool finally broke through the seal, but he was still unable to take control of the body and was ultimately suppressed by Tang Tian's light side. And he thought that Tang Tian did not have any schemes and did not have enough intelligence, but had mysteriously achieved a hegemony. From the start to the end, Little Fool had always been in a supporting position, which made Old Tang unable to understand. Old Tang spoke calmly, but with a disdainful attitude. As a man, the strongest martial power is to sow a seed and change the world. Just like how he had two sons, one was a treacherous and cunning son who had received guidance from famous teachers, but could not compare to the other naive and simple-minded son who lived in a desolate area. The Gold Continent was the strongest continent in the Eastern region with a long history and was the true ruler of the Eastern region. Mu Jixia stared at the bronze forest that was filled with killing intent. His gaze congealed, his heart filled with shock. The commander thought for a moment. Invincible, undefeatable. He had never seen such a strange mechanical puppet. 2 heads for arms, as though 2 bodies were glued together. The 2 bodies were black and white, with a clear distinction. One was white with black eyes, the other was black with white eyes. The dividing line between the 2 bodies was black and white, and the 4 words Gemini Throne could be clearly seen. Invade the Savage Continent. No, invading the Savage Continent is not as beneficial as invading the southern region. Listening to Old Tang's nagging, the commander's thoughts started to drift. All the memories that were weathered to the point of nothingness surfaced in his mind. All the faces that he once thought he had completely forgotten were as clear as ever. The commander was enraged. You want to fight? They had quietly set off after the Honorable Martial Continent launched the Southern Expedition. That shouldn't be the case. If the Gold Continent and the Honorable Martial Continent attacked the southern region at the same time with a pincer attack, it would be easy to divide the southern region. And in the history of the Savage Continent, it had never been conquered before. Compared to the affluent southern region, the Savage Continent was barren and barren. Even if the Gold Continent wanted to attack the Savage Continent, they would definitely not just send 2,000 elites. What could they do? Gemini Throne? Calm down. The enemy is right in front of us. Don't tell me you want them to laugh at you. Old Tang said slowly, for Mu Jixia to actually appear in the Savage Continent, needless to say, he definitely has designs on my daughter-in-law. He truly does not know his place. Old Tang still did not understand how Tang Tian did it. He only felt that his son was extremely good at tormenting people, especially good at taking advantage. And once he tormented, he would take advantage. From the style of the mechanical puppet, It was definitely a mechanical puppet from the gold continent. Its slender body did not look fat at all, and it held dual blades on its back with the hilt facing downwards. The classic configuration of 6 pairs of wings on its back demonstrated its outstanding mobility. The green metal armor was engraved with complicated and profound patterns. It was a configuration that only top-grade mechanical puppets would have, and they had a special name, Gold Continent Patterns. Tang Tian's achievements were not only stronger than Little Fool's, even Old Tang himself felt ashamed. Wrong. Old Tang said, without hesitation. If one looked closely, they would realize that the man was actually a spirit general. That's fine. Go ahead and beat him. Old Tang's anger seemed to have disappeared, and he spoke slowly, full of reminiscence. Anyways, his skin is thick and can take a beating. Sigh, since he was young, I have never beaten him up. Oh, I mean since young, I have never let him feel the love of a father. What a pity. His rough face was filled with vicissitudes of life, as though time had etched its mark. Commander was right. Gemini Constellation's foundation, compared to Tang Tian's foundation, was like a small magician in the presence of a great magician. It was as though he had returned to the distant battlefield, back to the familiar sound of the wind, the familiar shouts. Even the air was filled with a familiar smell, the smell of gunpowder. That war flag was the same as in the past, but compared to Tang Tian, he was able to create the Southern Alliance in the southern region with his bare hands. If he was given a bit more time, the possibility of unifying the southern region was extremely high. But what made Mu Jixia even more worried was the Gold Continent's mechanical army appearing in the Savage Continent, and the strategic intention behind it. The commander's face immediately turned black. Come, let's fight. Just treat it as a warm-up exercise. Unless the other party had the same thoughts as him, we can fight slowly. There's no rush. We've fought for so many years. Old Tang said slowly, but the opportunity to meet Mu Jixia, TSK, is something that can only be chanced upon. You dug out the Southern Cross Army's war flag from the rubbish heap from tens of thousands of years ago and placed it on our army, and I reluctantly agreed. But young Mu should not recognize the flag. But that's right, the Southern Cross Army's war flag has disappeared for tens of thousands of years. Who would remember? Since we have raised this war flag, we cannot lose face. How is it, old commander? Don't tell me you've forgotten your past abilities. Did the Gold Continent find a way to solve the problem of the Gold Continent marks? You don't have blood. Old Tang reminded him. The commander laughed. He raised his head. But there were over 2,000 of these mechanical puppets in front of him. The commander did not understand. Wrong? What's wrong? Aren't you afraid that something bad will happen to him? The commander had a look of disbelief. He scoffed. Oh, I forgot about Little Fool. In the past, you had high hopes for Little Fool. The dark side of human nature converged into one crafty, sinister, cold. He also had countless of famous teachers to guide him. TSK. What was that again? I remember now. He can embody the demeanor of the Gemini Constellation's royal family. He can control the Gemini Constellation's foundation. And he is your trump card to turn the tables. In the end, ha. Crazy Tang doesn't care about your broken palace anymore. That was the only reason that could explain the appearance of a 2,000 elite army in the Savage Continent. Tang Tian was safe and sound, causing the biggest stone in his heart to drop. The reason why he asked his wife to bring Tang Tian to Star Wind City was to let them avoid the calamity and not attract attention. We finally have a fight. In the cabin beside him, a tall and sturdy man laughed out loud, his expression excited. Run. I've run so much that my mouth tastes like a bird. I can finally fight. And it's Mu Jixia. Your father's blood is boiling. He felt that his worldview had been completely toppled. Amidst the laughter, Old Tang's face was as black as a pot. In truth, he had never thought that the one in control would actually be Tang Tian's bright side. After thinking about it, he decided to send someone to inquire. Just at that moment, his gaze swept past a mechanical puppet, and he was immediately startled. The commander added fuel to the fire. He even has ideas about your son. In the end, his tone was ice cold, filled with killing intent. Chapter 8:56. He could not help but look at the old commander. He believed that the things that he could see, the old commander would definitely be able to see as well. The old commander's ability to command and charge could easily suppress old Tang. In terms of intelligence, the old commander could not compare to him. He had spent a lot of effort on the army, and his standard had soared. But the strange thing was, as long as they fought, he would always be defeated by the old commander. Prepare for battle. Come, my green-red cross scythe. Mu Ji-xia's state of mind did not waver. His face that was covered with frost was indifferent. He stood at the front of the troops, as stable as a boulder. The area that he controlled was not always better, and the more energy he had, the better. He had understood this logic from a long time ago. Little Tang was shocked, but old Tang was even more shocked. Mu Ji-xia's heart surfaced a sense of danger. The blade was unsheathed. An indescribable light sigh and respect rose in old Tang's heart. He did not give orders like how he usually did, but took the initiative to give up the authority to command. He was very clear that his battle instincts could not be compared to the old commander. Behind him, all of the mechanical puppets were doing the same action, unsheathing their blades. Just at that moment, a low and powerful voice broke the silence. The low and deep voice came out from the commander's chest. He looked forward, his face solemn. Over and over again, to the empty heart, to the emptiness that had no response, to the long-gone disappearance, he shouted in vain, just like in the past. They were facing such a monster, and the pressure was unimaginable. The ground trembled. The ground beneath their feet was like a gigantic drum that was fiercely struck. How will the old commander perform against Mu Ji-xia? In his desolate heart that had been extinguished for 10,000 years, he shouted, roared, frantically called out. His shouts resonated. Inside Gemini Constellation King, the old commander was expressionless, but his body was trembling uncontrollably. The black and white Gemini Constellation King slowly lowered his waist, his forearms slowly unsheathing their blades at the same speed. And this is Mu Ji-xia's eyes even caught a glimpse of the surrounding mountain peaks that were affected, with countless of rocks falling down. Many of the memories that had disappeared, in the depths of his soul that was trembling, suddenly surfaced. On the opposite side of the sea of light, every tiny ripple spread out, turning from tiny to huge. At first, it was like a mosquito buzzing. As the ripples expanded, it was like heavy thunder. The energy around Mu Ji-xia's army was being assimilated at an astonishing speed. But the focus of his gaze was firmly on the black and white Gemini Constellation King. He saw a pair of eyes, a pair of blazing eyes. Mu Ji-xia's heavy sword was edgeless, but he was not skilled. In terms of realm, Mu Ji-xia surpassed the other four. Come on, brat, look at my green-red cross scythe. He was completely unaware that his weathered face was incomparably serious. Interesting. Mu Ji-xia narrowed his eyes slightly. He could clearly feel the change in his opponent's aura. What surprised him even more was that the expansion of the area of energy he controlled was restrained. The energy at the border, which had just been controlled, was affected by the strange tremors and went out of control again. Mu Ji-xia was expressionless. Southern Cross Army? He seemed to have heard of it somewhere. He had a vague impression of it. I think it should be an unknown army. Mu Ji-xia did not take it to heart. There were countless armies in the Sacred Saint Galaxy. How could he remember them so clearly? Mu Jixia was different from the other four. He had always been stationed in the Wei Guan continent and did not have any outstanding achievements. But from start to finish, Mu Jixia was the leader of the 5 honorable martial tigers. Many people in the outside world did not understand why. Even the citizens of the honorable martial continent did not understand. Everyone would say that even if he did not have any achievements, he had worked hard. He was humble and low profile, steady, and reliable. No one truly believed that Mu Jixia was the strongest out of the 5 honorable martial tigers. If Tang Tian was there, he would definitely be shocked. Solomon's light sword whale song was fully activated. Adding his support, he was able to achieve such a state. But Mu Jixia was able to achieve it with just a battle formation. A 100% synchronization rate. That explained everything. No one had ever achieved that. Never. Old Tang, who was chattering on and also quietened down. He could feel his comrades' extremely deep fighting intent. It's better to beat him up before talking. So fast. Old Tang's face changed. He thought that he had placed enough importance on Mu Jixia, but at that moment, he realized that he had still underestimated him. In a battle, underestimating the opponent was definitely a dangerous and terrible thing to do. Furthermore, it was not important. In his eyes, it did not matter what army the opponent was. He would be the victor. His eyes that were as indifferent as a god did not have any undulations. It was empty. No one replied. When old Tang saw the 100% synchronization rate, all of his doubts were resolved. Mu Jixia's pupils constricted. Come, everyone, look at my green-red cross scythe. Mu Jixia's gaze did not waver. Old Tang was no longer a newbie in the Sacred Saint Galaxy. He had stayed in the Sacred Saint Galaxy for a long time and had a deep understanding of the army system. To be able to create such a terrifying scene, there was only one reason: synchronization rate, a 100% synchronization rate. Commander, I'm sorry. I really can't learn it. Woo-woo. The young man whimpered, his shoulders twitching. Gemini King had 4 arms, and its posture was slightly different. With the 2 extra arms, one blade was raised high, and the other blade was placed in front of him, with the blade tip pointing downwards. Mu Jixia did not care that the assimilation energy was restricted. Maybe the old commander does not want to let down the banner, or maybe it is the pride deep in the warrior's heart that has never given up, even if 10,000 years have passed, even if the land beneath his feet is not the same land, even if the sky above his head is not the same sky. Old Tang was very clear what the battle under the banner meant to the old commander. Mu Jixia's army in front of him was dense and organized. He praised in his heart, as expected of the top-grade, famous general. What a familiar feeling. This was Mu Jixia. Under his simple and unadorned appearance was the pride that was hidden in the deepest part. Every step was earth-shattering. The 2 peaks on both sides continued to crumble, large amounts of mountain rocks and soil, bringing along a cloud of dust, rumbled down. With just 1 step, his speed suddenly increased by a lot, and the figure that rushed out from the cloud of dust became somewhat blurry. The bright red color spread at an astonishing speed along the blade to the bronze palms and arms. Bang! The sense of danger in Mu Jixia's heart became stronger and stronger. The standard long sword that was covered in scars was placed in front of him, and the expression on his face finally changed. Advance! Old Tang finally understood why Mu Jixia was the leader of the 5 honorable martial tigers. The 2,000 mechanical puppets were like 2,000 statues with the exact same posture. Sha, sha, sha. Suddenly, Mu Jixia noticed that Gemini constellation Wang Jian's 2 blades did not turn red, but instead lit up with a green light aura. And the other mechanical puppets' bodies also lit up with a green light aura. The 4,000 blades, with the same speed, were slowly moving, the blades rubbing against the scabbard, converging into a sound, bringing along an indescribable tremor that rippled out in all directions. I told you guys long ago, my talent is very powerful. Commander, don't worry, I will definitely bring this technique to greater heights. Hey, what's with your expressions? Are you looking down on me? The young man's face was flushed red. Bang, bang, bang. Southern Cross Army. Every famous general here had gone through hundreds of battles. All of them had stepped on piles of corpses to become famous. Leading troops into battle, Old Tang was very clear that the old commander was stronger than him. The strange tremors disappeared, the rustling sound disappeared, and the battlefield became quiet. The two of them had been partners for many years and were extremely familiar with each other. Along the way, Old Tang held the absolute initiative in terms of schemes and strategies. The two of them were on completely different levels. Even if the opponent was a famous general, even if the opponent was the other four tigers, the opposing army, the strange-looking Gemini constellation king, was also at the front of the formation. This caused Mu Jixia to be even more impressed. Not all military generals had the courage and ability to stand at the front of the formation. It showed that the opponent's strength was not ordinary, and they were confident. But to Mu Jixia, it did not matter. When he had just arrived at the Sacred Saint Galaxy, he was filled with disdain towards it. The martial techniques here were outdated and lacked variation. But when he slowly familiarized himself with the Sacred Saint Galaxy, he understood that the Sacred Saint Galaxy walked on another path, where armies ruled. When he understood more and more, the disdain in his heart towards the Sacred Saint Galaxy had long disappeared, and was replaced with even more reverence. The history of the Sacred Saint Galaxy was much longer than Heaven's Road. Its foundation was much more profound than Heaven's Road, and the army system had already developed to its peak. The most perfect state in theory, which was hailed as a synchronization rate that was impossible to achieve in reality, had appeared in front of him. Only with a 100% synchronization rate could it create the scene in front of him. He was slightly excited, but in the blink of an eye, he calmed himself down. He did not look down on Mu Jixia, but he did not dare. Squatting down, his body leaned forward. Both of his hands opened up like wings, holding onto two long blades. Mu Jixia might not be the strongest military general in the Sacred Saint Galaxy, but he definitely had the qualifications to be one of them. Countless of cracks, like spiderwebs, extended out in all directions, raising dust that covered the sky. Are they attacking? Just at that moment, Mu Jixia seemed to have noticed the commotion and also changed into a battle formation. The aura of the opposing formation changed. Everyone's aura became one. Extremely dense light energy flowed silently within the battle formation, without any hindrance. The energy became denser and denser, congealing into a substance. The soldiers' figures were like a white liquid that disappeared. It was a sea of white light, a sea of light that contained endless danger and destruction. Inside the white light, Mu Jixia stared coldly at the opposing army. He initially wanted to send people to ask, but he did not expect the opponent to actually get into a battle formation. Without hesitation, he also got into a battle formation. Mo Xion's flawless balance, Jia Ya's strongest defense, Qiu Suhua's heavenly steed, soaring through the skies, Go Cheng Wendao's unparalleled incisiveness. All of them were radiating with boundless radiance. Out of them, Mu Jixia was simple and unremarkable. Brat. Everyone, In Mu Jixia's vision, a red dot appeared. It was the blade tip that swept through the air at high speed, causing intense friction, causing the blade tip to be heated red. But in the next moment, the densely packed red dots appeared in his vision. 2,000 extremely heavy bronze mechanical feet fiercely stepped on the ground at the same time, without the slightest mistake, as though they were the same person. The jaw-dropping precision, speed, and weight caused the simple step to be filled with unparalleled might. That's right, the war flag was the same as in the past. He roared with all his might, with a trace of trembling in it. Muji Xia was surprised the opponent's strength was not ordinary, but his emotions were actually wavering at such a time. Chapter 8:57. He did not think about who the other party was, nor did he think about the other party's goal in entering the savage continent. The standard sword in his hand had followed him for many years. It was riddled with scars, and all of the scars were formed when he trained, and not a single one was formed from fighting. However, its combat prowess was undeniable. In the next moment, the green and red cross appeared in front of Muji Xia. The standard sword in front of him was like a boulder not moving an inch. Clang! To be able to contend against his army, such fighting strength was definitely not to be underestimated. There was only one reason. The Gold Continent was intentionally hiding it. The border between the Savage Continent and the Honorable Martial Continent was extremely long. Other than the strategic Wei Yiguan Continent, the other places were extremely dangerous. The two green and red crosses were imprinted on each other. This became the best footnote for the confrontation. He did not know that opposite him, Muji Xia, who had a normal expression, was extremely shocked. His previous move looked like it was done casually, but in truth, it was a famous move. Honorable Martial Growth Sword. It was not an army-killing technique, but in his hands, its might definitely surpassed any ordinary gold-rank army-killing technique. Muji Xia became excited. He was a low-profile and steady person, and the Honorable Martial Continent had given him an important mission, which was to defend the Wei Yiguan Continent. He had always been cautious and conscientious, and was meticulous. Against the Savage Continent, he was able to easily set up his plans, and the higher-ups who knew of his plans praised him, as he did not even have the chance to display his extraordinary fighting strength. Inside Gemini constellation, the sinister-looking old commander's expression became extremely calm. His deep gaze landed on the army in front of him, his mouth revealing a faint smile, as though he was reminiscing. After an unknown period of time, the snow-white energy crystals grew in the direction of the sword tip. As though the sword was growing, the speed was so fast that the naked eye could not catch it. It was called reverse cross slash. The old commander retracted his reminiscing thoughts. His gaze landed in the distance. His eyes filled with admiration. Brat, this is the green and red cross scythe unique technique that you have never learned before. In the information sent over by the intelligence system, there was no information about this army, as though it had appeared out of thin air. The mechanical puppet's entire body blossomed with green and red light auras, and were attracted into the cross. They were not as large as before, and they did not have as many famous generals. Their influence on the war was negligible. Their previous assault was extremely ferocious and unstoppable, but when they suddenly flew backwards, they were as light as dragonflies, as though they were two completely different armies. The strong contradictory feelings mixed together made people feel awe. This area, which was filled with spatial cracks, was known as the Black Death Zone. Even wild beasts did not dare to enter. The ground here wasn't corroded by the spatial cracks, but it was already riddled with holes. There were even many cliffs that required flying. Fortunately, everyone was strong enough. However, when they saw the crisscrossing black lines below, everyone's hair stood on end. They had to open their eyes wide and carefully avoid those spatial cracks in the sky. The clear ringing of a sword being unsheathed clearly drilled into everyone's ears amidst the earth-shaking rumbling. Muji Xia was able to easily block his front reverse cross slash, as expected of one of the strongest generals in the world. After the old regiment commander finished reminiscing, he was completely excited. Until today, when he truly met an opponent, an opponent that he could feel danger from. The fighting intent that he initially thought would never be provoked was like a fierce beast that had broken free from its shackles, opening its scarlet red eyes. After all, the new army only had 2,000 men and was not even a miniature version of the Southern Cross Army. When the entire mechanical army landed on the ground like a withered leaf, not even a speck of dust could be seen, the intense contradiction reached its peak. An unobtrusive group quietly moved forward. Their speed was extremely slow, and every step they took had to be extremely careful. Everywhere around them were spatial cracks that led to nothingness, all of them crisscrossing, and had existed for tens of thousands of years. All of these spatial cracks were more dangerous than the sharpest blade. As long as they touched them, they would not even feel pain, and their bodies would be sliced into pieces. It was the first time someone was able to leave a scar on his sword. A difficult opponent. It is a smuggling trail. When the energy crystals appeared, the energy in the entire formation immediately became extremely active. He stared at the mechanical army opposite him. The mysterious army in front of him was stronger than he had expected. The upper half of the mountain peaks on both sides slowly slid down and finally crumbled, transforming into countless of rocks that fell down, leaving behind half of the mountain and neat cuts. Mu Jixia held the standard long sword horizontally in front of him, the sword tip pointed straight ahead, his gaze exploding. He welcomed the green and red cross, thrusting his sword forward. The slowly undulating sea of energy seemed to have found a place to vent, and frantically surged towards the tip of his sword. The vast amount of energy was frantically compressed to the extreme. The green and red fragmented auras flew like fireflies. The snow-white fragmented auras were like snow. The two were clearly separated. A loud explosion sounded out. The green and red fragmented auras were blown away by a gale, flying towards the Southern Cross Army. The fragmented auras that were like snow also flew towards Mu Jixia's army in the same manner. That's right, they are stronger than I expected. Since when did the Gold Continent have such a strong army? I never thought that the Gold Continent would actually hide such a powerful trump card. Mu Jixia quickly calmed himself down. The Gold Continent's history was much longer than the Honorable Marshall Continent, and it was not strange for them to have a trump card that was unexpected. Although he was extremely prideful in his heart, but he was definitely not conceited to the point of thinking that he was the number one under the heavens. The snow-white light aura that was reflected on his face dimmed down. The light that dimmed down, and an energy crystal the size of a rice grain appeared at the tip of his sword. It was a vast amount of energy that had undergone a terrifying compression to form an energy crystal. Facing the green and red fragmented auras that were flying backwards, the Southern Cross Army was like a light insect and flew backwards. A spot of light formed at the tip of the sword at a speed visible to the naked eye. Xiangbei was also extremely tired. The road that was not a road was the Blackwater tribe's biggest secret. He did not need to look down to know that the sword in his hand had a small crack. In all of his experiences, no one had ever blocked the front and back cross-kill, and it was the first time. Although this Southern Cross Army was completely different from the Southern Cross Army in the past, this brand new army, compared to the Southern Cross Army in the past, was so small that it could be ignored. Compared to the famous Southern Cross Army in the past, this brand new army was extremely shabby. Furthermore, the trembling of the ground, the whistling bronze current, did not cause Mu Jixia's expression to change. Even if he did not care much about it, facing everyone, he could still maintain a low profile and be humble because he knew that he was stronger than them. The fighting intent in his body was like a fierce beast with no natural enemies, no opponents. He gave himself a harmless disguise and peacefully slept. Even with Xiangbei leading the way, Even with everyone's 120% focus, the number of people that did not fight was still 37. Luckily, everyone was a tenacious person and did not suffer too much of a setback, just that they were even more careful. He only had one thought: to fight to his heart's content. The choices of the two armies were completely different. Everyone's faces were filled with caution. Even Exion, who was a carefree person, did not dare to slack off at such a time. The ground beneath their feet, rather than saying it was a path, it was more like a stone pillar. Facing the incoming snow-white auras, Mu Jixia's army was like a boulder, not moving an inch. The snow-white auras seemed to have collided with an iron wall, and with a bang, they transformed into two currents, whizzing past the two sides of the formation. No one knew that in an unknown place in the savage continent, a huge battle that could shake the world was currently going on. Time stopped at that moment. Mu Jixia truly lived up to his name. The most dangerous thing were the spatial cracks that were thinner than hair. If one was not careful, they would be easily overlooked. The snow-white rhombus-shaped energy crystals emitted a faint white light. It was as warm as the sun. It did not have any tyrannical aura, but an indescribable comfort. But with the full support of the Gold Continent, the newer and stronger mechanical weapons, the richer and more extensive army system, the elites of the elites, adding his 10 years of meticulous training, it allowed the Southern Cross Army to have its own uniqueness. Mu Jixia's army's performance was praiseworthy, but it was not unexpected. But the Southern Cross Army's performance was surprising and shocking. It was hard to imagine that the huge and clumsy mechanical puppets were actually able to perform such light movements. Furthermore, it was not just one, but two, but the entire army. The long period of tension caused everyone to look fatigued. Even Tai Ji, a strong martial artist, revealed a look of fatigue. They had been walking in this dangerous place for 2 whole months. In truth, the distance was not far, but every step they took required them to be extremely careful, and their speed was like a turtle crawling. But no one had any impatience on their faces, because they had personally witnessed their comrades being sliced into pieces by the spatial cracks. An unfamiliar excitement surged in his body, until he saw the Gemini constellation king's 4 swords moving in opposite trajectories, slashing out 2 identical crosses. Did Mu Jixia's pupils constrict? Mu Jixia's expression was normal, but the aura around his body suddenly surged as though a ferocious beast had surfaced. Its brightness continued to increase, and in the blink of the eye, it became as bright as the sun, releasing dazzling white light, illuminating the surroundings, including Mu Jixia's face. The snow-white crystal sword body was warm and joyful. The green and red cross was cold and chilling to the bone. He knew the few powerful armies in the Gold Continent like the back of his hand. The Gold Continent was far away from the Honorable Martial Continent and was not their primary target, but the Honorable Martial Continent knew the importance of preparation, and thus their infiltration into the Gold Continent was not considered strong, but they were able to hold on for a long time. The cold green and red cross was like a crispy biscuit, shattering into pieces. Xiang Bei was at the front. He would remind everyone from time to time, allowing them to avoid the dangers that were hard to discover. A snow-white streak of light, as fast as lightning, accurately pierced the center of the green and red cross. At the same time, the snow-white crystal sword body also shattered. There was nothing more exciting than meeting a good opponent. Rumble, rumble. Chapter 858. A few. Xiang Bei replied cautiously. They are a few smugglers. This lowly one's goods were all sold to them. Most of them do not obey temple, but this lowly one does not dare guarantee that they are not reliable. Carl, I am sorry, but you will have to work hard for a period of time. Sacred Son Charles's words were sincere. The reconstruction of Blue Wind City is extremely important. I am not at ease to hand it over to others, so I can only let you continue to take charge." Karl immediately went forward and greeted respectfully. "Your Highness." The sudden attack caused Karl to be stunned, and only after a moment did he regain his senses. But today, he did not appear at the construction site, but stood guard outside Sacred Son Charles's residence. After the unpleasant visit, he returned to his residence as per usual, rebuilding a city, and a majestic one at that. The workload was immense. Other than the Western trader's own strength, he still needed to unify the strength of the other organizations, which was not an easy task. He walked into his study and prepared to start work as per usual. Her first thought was to communicate with Tang Tian. Sacred Son Charles was the key. Sacred Son Charles's favoritism towards Lance was obvious. Do it well. Charles patted Karl's shoulder and encouraged him. When he knew that Mu Jixia had personally entered the Savage Continent, he knew that Mu Jixia's target was them. Thus he came up with the brazen plan. He was not angry. The other party could treat him as heir, but he could not, with the identity of an honorable martial banner of knights. If he offended the other party, he would be killed in one slash, and he would not even have a chance to seek justice. Suddenly, his throat was tightly gripped by a hand, and he could not make a sound. Go Chung Wendao has finally taken over the Shang continent. If the Southern Alliance took the initiative to retreat, then what is their next plan? Sophie's mind flashed with a few possibilities, for example, attacking the supply line or surrounding the Shang continent. Up until now, the Southern Alliance's performance in the battle had exceeded everyone's expectations. Regardless of whether it was the commander-in-chief's commanding ability or the fighting strength of the army, they were all outstanding. Sophie was still worried, but she did not say anything inappropriate. Of course, to attract Sacred Son Charles's attention and interest was not easy. At least he had to do it beautifully. Sophie did not seem to like him, but he did not care. He understood people like Sophie very well. Even if she didn't like him, she wouldn't interfere with Royal Highness Charles's judgment. Charles continued, "There are some matters that I need to return to Temple immediately. I've already ordered Lieutenant General Lance to investigate the Golden Province bandits. Temple will send a new Lieutenant General to help Lieutenant General Lance. You only have one task, and that is to rebuild Blue Wind City. For your safety, I will leave a few honorable martial banner of knights behind until Blue Wind City is completed." Xian looked around, feeling a little excited. As he watched the battle plan he had personally formulated gradually materialize, the battle intent in his heart burned even more fiercely. His Royal Highness Charles had said that he would leave a few Knights of Light to ensure Karl's safety, but in fact, he had only left one. However, Karl still went to visit this noble knight. Of course, the fact that the knight treated him like heir was within his expectations. Jie Shangguan listened to their conversation, but carefully sensed the difference between the honorable martial continent and the savage continent. The energy in the air was even denser, but it did not have the unique energy in the savage continent that could isolate the outside world. "Do you have anyone you are familiar with here?" Xian asked. Blue Wind City was currently a bustling construction site, with countless people bustling about. An even more majestic city was about to appear in Blue Wind City's original location. "This is the Honorable Martial Continent." A young and unfamiliar face entered his field of vision. Charles had rushed back to Temple because something big had happened. Sophie spoke coldly as usual. According to Master Go Chung Wendao's report, the Southern Alliance did not risk their lives to defend, but more like a strategic retreat. If that's the case, then the enemy will definitely have a backup plan. Creak. The big door opened, and Charles, who was dressed in a pure white robe, walked out. Shang Bei spoke respectfully. "Yes, this place has already entered the Honorable Martial Continent, and is called the Small Forest Continent. although the small forest continent is connected to the savage continent, but because of the black zone of death, there are not many troops stationed there. Take your time. I wish you good luck. Xin nodded his head. He knew that it was true. The Honorable Marshal Continent would never have thought that someone would actually be able to find a small path in the black zone of death. But even if they knew, they might not care. Xin, who had personally gone through it, knew that the small smuggling path that Xiangbei and the rest had discovered was unable to pass through large-scale armies. Forget about warships. Even the smallest transport ships were unable to pass through. Carl was proficient in reading people's expressions. Furthermore, the other party did not hide anything, but he could only laugh bitterly in his heart. As long as they controlled the Shang continent, it meant that they controlled the passage to Heaven's Road. To Temple, no matter how big of a sacrifice they made, it was not worth mentioning. Heaven's Road's Honorable Marshal Temple's betrayal had infuriated Temple. For the past few years, Temple had always treated Heaven's Road as a branch, and did not spare any effort in grooming them, just so that when they conquered Heaven's Road, they would have Heaven's Road Temple as a spy. I hope so, Sophie said indifferently. She had a premonition that the matter was definitely not that simple. Carl knew that it was also an opportunity. If they were able to form a relationship with Charles, it would be extremely beneficial to the Western traders. It was not that he did not know, but he never dared to think about it in the past. In front of Temple, the traders were not even ants. Playing hide and seek in the savage continent, Temple's rage could be imagined. Regardless of the price they had to pay, they had to take down the Shang continent. Compared to taking down the Shang continent, the matter of Blue Wind City was not even worth mentioning. Lieutenant General Lance had just been transferred over. And compared to Lieutenant General Oliver, who only wanted to earn some money for his retirement, the younger and more talented Lieutenant General Lance obviously had greater ambitions and was harder to deal with. But it is the best natural opportunity to be able to serve your Highness. It is Carl and the Western traders' honor. Carl immediately said, although the Southern Alliance was in a bad situation, Go Chung Wundao did not care about the casualties and forcefully pushed forward, causing both sides to have more casualties. But regardless of how difficult it was, it could not be compared to the start. Previously, the Southern Alliance did not retreat even in such a difficult situation, but now that they chose to retreat, how could people not be suspicious? Thank you, Your Highness, Carl said gratefully. Backup plan? Charles laughed out loud. What does that matter? Anyways, the Shang continent is in our hands. That is enough. The Shang continent is in our hands. Heaven's Road is also in our hands. We will have endless spirit generals. We will become stronger. Then what are we afraid of? Sophie, don't be too pessimistic. He was not stupid enough to think that the Honorable Marshal banner of knights that had stayed behind were truly there to ensure his safety, and that the other party was supervising him. Now, the Perseus King Court's army is going around showing off. I wonder if Mu Jixia has found them. I am looking forward to it. No matter how familiar Mu Jixia was with the savage continent, he could not be more familiar with it than the citizens. Her face revealed the excitement of a young lady. She could not wait to activate the bronze star door. Only such an outstanding person has the qualifications to become Temple's future successor. A sinister smile flashed past Xion's face, and he immediately became serious. Entering the Honorable Marshal Continent does not mean victory. The battle has just begun. The Shang continent is finally in our hands. Charles's face was filled with excitement. His usual steadiness had long been thrown away. This truly makes me excited. The door is finally going to be opened. What will Heaven's Road be like? When I was young, I had imagined it countless of times, and the day has finally come. Sophie, aren't you excited at all? Charles did not speak anymore. He quickly boarded the warship, which quickly activated and disappeared into the sky. An irresistible force transmitted over, causing him to feel the world spinning around him, and his entire body was lifted up into the air. The way he looked at Carl was rather unfriendly, but his strict discipline made him restrain the urge to cut Carl in half. The unique energy above the savage continent had isolated the bronze star door, and she was unable to contact Tang Tian. Previously, she was worried that the honorable Martial continent would be like the savage continent, but she could finally heave a sigh of relief. Carl's eyes lit up. He had to admit that Sacred Son Charles had an impeccable temperament. The pure white robe accentuated Sacred Son's tall and slender figure. The gold thread weaved into patterns made him look noble and elegant. His handsome face, that could cause countless of women to scream, had an enchanting smile that was like spring, confident, and amiable, causing every word he said to be filled with power, and could not help but convince others. Carl was extremely busy, but he did not have any complaints. He knew that it was the biggest crisis that the Western traders had ever faced, and Lieutenant General Oliver's dismissal had shaken him greatly. Lieutenant General Oliver was the Western traders' biggest backer in the Western region, and the reason why the Western traders were able to run amok in the Western region was because of Lieutenant General Oliver. The Honorable Martial Banner of Knights that stayed behind was called Roger, and he was not happy at all. The news of taking down the Shang continent was known to all of the knights, and if Sacred Son Charles were to return now, it was extremely likely that he would head straight to the Shang continent or even Heaven's Road. Thinking about how he had to stay in the middle of nowhere and do nothing at such an important time, his mood was extremely terrible. I will die for Sacred Son. Carl bowed even lower. Carl only stood up after the warship disappeared and started to ponder. Something big must have happened for Sacred Son Charles to rush back so hastily, but it was obviously not something he needed to think about. As long as he did his own thing, it was more important than anything else. Who knew that Heaven's Road Temple would actually establish themselves so soon? But Sophie also knew that even if they knew it was a bait, Temple could not reject it. Chapter 8:59. Who are you? Just call the Honorable Martial Banner of Knights over. Tang Tian smiled. Carl's gaze gradually became blank, and his expression became sluggish. Although I yearn for the light, but I have to admit I seem to be more proficient in shady dealings. Sima Xiao stood there, with Magatama behind him. We do not lack money. Tang Tian shook his head. It is just that we need your cooperation. If you can cooperate, we will not endanger your life. But Tang Tian was still surprised, although the undulation did not look strong, but it was pervasive and had a huge influence on the state of mind. If one did not train in mental martial techniques, it would be extremely difficult to defend against it. Carl could no longer maintain his composure, his face filled with panic. What are you guys trying to do? What are you guys trying to do? After waking up, he seemed to have matured a lot. His gaze was always so bright that it could pierce through people's hearts, as though there were no secrets in front of him. After a few days, the light aura in his eyes gradually dimmed. All of his sharpness seemed to have disappeared. Tang Tian had become extremely ordinary and was always overlooked by others. And the true crux of the matter was on him. He could faintly feel that regardless of temperament or strength, Tang Tian had a qualitative leap. This caused him to be shocked, and at the same time, he could not help but feel bitter. All along, he had absolute confidence in his own talent, but compared to Tang Tian, the disparity was so huge that he could not even be angry. He had watched Tang Tian's growth along the way, and the difference in strength between the two of them continued to widen at an astonishing rate. Until now, it was an insurmountable gap. In the past few days, Tang Tian had truly experienced the Western traders' strength in the Western region. Charles had even handed the task of rebuilding Blue Wind City to the Western traders, and the rallying power that the Western traders displayed made Tang Tian secretly surprised. Johnson had specially investigated and found out that all the famous traders in the Western region had all joined in the rebuilding of Blue Wind City. Thus, the rallying power of the Western traders was evident. Carl was startled, but in the next moment, fear surged from the bottom of his heart. He screamed, "You guys actually dare to become enemies with Temple?" Just like Magatama's charm, not to mention Carl. Even Seiyu and the others might not be able to resist it. However, a ripple suddenly shook his heart, and he felt as if he had been struck by lightning. Carl forced himself to remain calm. He was, after all, the authoritative figure of the Western traders, and if he revealed any fear, it would not change his predicament. The youth of the other party surprised him. When the flickering light of the bronze, starry door entered his field of vision, his heart seemed to be tightly gripped by an invisible hand. After the intense feeling of suffocation, an indescribable joy filled his heart. At this time, Carl had a bad premonition and shouted, "What do you want to do?" "Guards! Guards!" He knew why Charles and the Honorable Marshal Banner of Knights left in a hurry. It was because Bing's plan had begun. The Shang continent was the bait that Temple could not reject. But Tang Tian also knew this was just the beginning of Bing's huge plan. Tang Tian understood that he had improved, and this gave him more confidence. Sima Xiao said softly, "Go you, it's up to you now." He had rushed over as soon as the news of Temple sending out an investigation team reached his ears, and he immediately moved. After fighting side by side for a long time, he understood Tang Tian. Regardless of whether it was charging and breaking through enemy lines or fighting and killing, Tang Tian was a top-notch fighter, but in terms of crafty plots and schemes, it was difficult for him. Carl did not panic at all. He waved his hands. "Although I do not know where all of you are from, but I think that it will not affect us from being friends. The Western traders have always been stingy with their friends. If all of you are short on money, why not give me a number?" But at that moment, he was nervous. The intense nervousness caused his mind to go blank. Tang Tian was curious. He had never seen any charm or charm ability before. He had been carefully observing Magatama, and when he met Magatama's eyes that were filled with light auras, he immediately felt a formless undulation that was attempting to affect his state of mind. Behind Sima Xiao, Magatama seemed to have sensed Sima Zhao's thoughts and revealed an undetectable smile. The bewitching and enchanting face had a trace of vitality. Originally, although her face was extremely beautiful, but it always gave people the feeling that she was not alive, but at that moment, her beautiful face suddenly became lively. "It's done," Sima Xiao said with a calm face. What made him feel even more helpless was that he did not even know how the gap was widened unknowingly, and without knowing why it had widened. He suddenly reacted, and his pupils constricted. "Why, you guys are the bandits!" Tang Tian was no longer a virgin, although there were many times when people would worry about him being unreliable, but the majority of the time, the maturity that he displayed was far beyond his age. "That's right." Tang Tian replied straightforwardly, "We are enemies. How about it? Consider it." Sima Xiao was a prideful man, one that came from his bones. When he followed Tang Tian to the Sacred Saint Galaxy, he had secretly harbored the thought of competing with Tang Tian, but time seemed to have stopped at that moment. But when Sima Xiao saw Tang Tian, he was shocked by Tang Tian's transformation. Tang Tian was extremely sharp, and the change in Sima Xiao and Magatama was immediately captured by him. Carl was like that. He held a high position and did not rely on his personal strength, but his methods and schemes. In front of such a direct confrontation, there was no way to resist. Maybe he could not compare to Tang Tian, the perverse man, but how could that be a reason for him to give up? His thoughts were racing, but Carl did not reveal anything and said, "What do you need me to do?" It truly is a despairing reality. His figure flashed, and he appeared in front of the bronze star door. The intense nervousness caused the young man to be left with his instincts. It also strengthened Tang Tian's determination to get rid of the Western traders. Tang Tian was lazy to persuade him. The energy in the room was completely frozen by him, and no matter what happened in the room, no one outside would be able to sense it. Tang Tian spoke to the darkness, helplessly. As expected, you are the one who has to do it. A light laugh came out from the shadows. A chestnut-haired young man walked out from the shadows, his face revealing a warm smile. But for some reason, when Carl saw the harmless smile on his face, he felt as though he was being stared at by a snake, and his entire body tensed up. Big Brother Tian. Tang Tian's tone was indifferent, but it caused Carl's heart to tense up. The other party was definitely not after money. Luckily you're here. Tang Tian heaved a sigh of relief. He was not too disappointed in his heart, as his own strength continued to improve. Unknowingly, he had become much stronger than before. As he grew stronger, Magatama's strength would grow even stronger. And when Magatama became stronger, it would also increase his own strength. Tang Tian was deep in thought. In the Sacred Saint Galaxy, using such a method to obtain victory was far more effective than using other methods. He repeated it over and over again in his heart and did not know how to get tired of it. But Tang Tian's glass-like mental state was already as firm as a boulder, untainted by even a speck of dust, and immediately struggled out. You do not need to know who I am. You only need to know what you want to do. Suddenly, Tang Tian became anxious. Chia. His initial target was Charles and the Banner of Knights, but the aura and strength that the other party revealed made him give up. His strength had not completely recovered, and it was not wise to challenge the Banner of Knights. When he saw Magatama's face clearly, he was stunned. That beautiful face that could captivate all living beings, that suffocatingly beautiful face, firmly attracted his gaze. Her crescent moon-like eyes slowly rotated, as though they were vortexes that attracted light, filled with extreme beauty and mysteriousness. Carl's attention was completely attracted, and followed it as it slowly rotated. Magatama was like a wisp of smoke, and suddenly appeared in front of Carl. In the long bronze pathway, rumbling sounds rumbled like thunder, and a figure flew forward as fast as lightning. He was like an arrow piercing through the air. Every step he took would cause the air to be compressed to the extreme, and then it would shatter, rumbling like thunder, and the intense shock waves surged endlessly in the pathway. At the two ends of the bronze star door, the two of them trembled at the same time. His life and Magatama's life, in a certain sense, were already one. He did not want to give in to his senior brother, the frail and sickly senior brother with unfathomable strength, who would forever be like a large umbrella to shield him from the wind and rain. Sima Xiao shrugged his shoulders and laughed at himself. Luckily, I can still be of use. Sima Xiao's eyes regained clarity, as though something in his heart had opened up, and he felt extremely carefree and relaxed. His heart was filled with joy. Not only did he understand that his state of mind had reached another level, he was even more happy that he finally understood what was the most precious part of his life. That's right, in my life, I still have my senior brother and Magatama. That's right, nervousness. This was an emotion that had not appeared in Tang Tian for a long time, and suddenly, without any warning, it occupied his body and mind. He had defeated countless of enemies, experienced countless of battles, and encountered countless of dangers, but he had never been nervous before. Chia! Magatama stopped and quietly returned to Sima Zhao's back. Ever since he had awoken from his coma, his calm and tranquil face was now filled with excitement. He used all the strength in his body, his mind filled with the face that he had thought about day and night. No, I will definitely not do anything that will harm Temple. Even if you kill me, I will not. Carl's face was ashen. That's right, he would definitely not agree to it. No one in the honorable martial continent dared to be enemies with Temple, and if he were to do such a thing, the Western traders would be crushed in the blink of an eye. He had personally built the Western traders into such a large empire, and even if he died, he would definitely not destroy it. Karl became Tang Tian's target. Regardless of how one looked at it, Karl was the best choice. The hatred between everyone and the Western traders could not be resolved, and if they wanted to cause trouble in the Western region, they would first have to destroy the Western traders. As though their hearts were linked, as though they were born with a tacit understanding, as though it was arranged by fate, the two of them shouted out the name that they had been thinking about day and night. Chapter 860. Tai Ji bade farewell to Jie Shangguan and spoke with a serious expression. Young miss, rest assured, this subordinate will definitely complete the mission. Young miss, please take care. Luo Jie did not have the time to draw his sword, but he was still strong and had rich battle experience. He did not panic. He bellowed and clenched his right fist, causing a bright white light aura to appear on his right arm, and he punched towards the blood-colored blade aura. As she spoke, Qianhui started to talk about herself, about her experiences, about how she left the ancient battlefield, about the strange lost toe that she saw, about the interesting things that happened to Xian and Xiao Ran. That's right, he felt that he was a supervisor. Luo Jie still needed to protect Karl. That's right, an honorable martial banner of knights, to actually protect a merchant. He felt extremely embarrassed. Due to Master Sophie's influence, the honorable martial banner of knights did not have any good feelings towards merchants like Karl. In the honorable martial continent, Temple was the true ruler, and in Temple, the honorable martial banner of knights held an extremely high position. Every honorable martial banner of knights were geniuses among geniuses, and Luo Jie himself was a genius. He had gone through layers of selection and bitter tempering. His position was extraordinary, his talent overflowed, his strength was powerful, and he had the qualifications to look down on everyone else. If there was truly an incredible discovery to Luo Jie, it would not only be a joy, but also an opportunity. The investigation group did not do anything to the bandits, and the biggest reason was naturally related to Go Cheng, Wen Dao seizing the Shang continent. But if he was able to find something valuable, it would be extremely beneficial to him. The seemingly solid white light surged out from the surface of the armor, transforming into a blazing white flame that enveloped Luo Jie's entire body. It was extremely difficult to move around in the enemy's territory without any support. Furthermore, they were extremely eye-catching. The majority of them were spirit generals, and as long as they walked out of the Sacred Saint Galaxy, it would be difficult for them to not attract attention. His right fist swallowed. The holy white light that enveloped his fist suddenly became as sharp as needles, and the blood-colored blade aura shattered. Ji Zhe's body trembled. Blood leaked out from the corner of his mouth. It contained countless of tiny golden lines that crackled inside the blazing white flames like golden lightning. After a long time, Sima Xiao finally recovered from the shock. He had a complicated expression. Miss Jie is truly an amazing lady. You truly are lucky. It was a simple stab, but it caused the expressions of everyone present to change drastically. The energy that filled the sky rumbled, and they actually had a feeling that they couldn't resist it. Ji Zhe let out a muffled groan. Instead of retreating, the blood-red blade aura blossomed like a net and enveloped Roger. As soon as the blood-colored blade net came into contact with this layer of blazing white flame, it was like a drop of water thrown into a raging flame. With a sizzling sound, it turned into ashes. The youth spoke softly like the wind. Jie Shangguan couldn't help but smile. The instant the fist aura and the blood-colored blade aura collided, the blood in Roger's body seemed to jump as if it was grabbed by an invisible rope. A new discovery? Xiao Ran could not be bothered with Xian, and asked Jie Shangguan worriedly, "Young miss, Xiangbei has also returned. Are we going to act alone? Of course. No one is smarter than Chia. When Tang Tian heard this, he was incomparably pleased with himself. However, he suddenly realized something and glared at him. What do you mean by dog shit luck? Are we going to fight? There's nothing here. I'm afraid that my companions have already followed His Highness to the Shang continent. He revealed a look of yearning. Heading to the Shang continent meant that he had accomplished a lot and might even leave his name in Temple's history. What about me? The great honorable Marshal Banner of Knights was writing a legend, creating Temple's history, and the unlucky Roger had become an outstanding supervisor. Sima Xiao looked at Tang Tian and whistled with a mischievous look on his face. Seems like you have been nourished, young man. Hee hee, even a godlike young man, like you cannot resist the power of love. I am truly curious, what kind of person is young Miss Chia to actually be able to make our godlike young man fall head over heels for her? The rumbling sounds in the sky suddenly stopped. A unique remnant energy, an ordinary fist appeared out of thin air without any warning and blocked Roger's palm. He felt extremely happy. He did not know how to describe his feelings. He only knew that he was extremely happy to the point that he wanted to jump up and fly. It was Roger's first time encountering such a strange situation, and his face changed. Beautiful, Xin subconsciously blurted out. Xiao Man suddenly turned and smiled sweetly at Xin. Is it beautiful? Suddenly, Johnson was filled with curiosity towards young Miss Chia. What kind of woman can make the master be like that? Could she be even more beautiful than young Miss Melissa? Roger's eyes suddenly constricted. A shadow quickly enveloped his vision. The Zanbato! Oh no! The Zanbato had slashed onto his face, causing Xin to fly out like a rubber ball, spinning and flying out over 30 m. He had never seen such emotions from the master before. He could clearly remember that the master had shown killing intent towards young Miss Melissa a few times. In his heart, the master was extremely cold and emotionless. Beauty did not attract him at all, and was a true killing machine. Xiao Man became excited. It feels different from the savage continent. The energy here is much more lively and much denser than in the savage continent. Everyone is becoming stronger, and if we have enough time, everyone will be able to condense a physical body, but it will take a long time. Macefield Tradings. Chia Shangguan laughed, then asked, How is it? How does everyone feel? When he saw the foolish-looking man in front of him, who was grinning foolishly for a long time, he was startled. Is this still the cold and emotionless master who kills without hesitation? As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left with Xiangbei. They were going to walk the path filled with death once again and return to the savage continent. Roger was unable to disobey His Majesty's orders. He was loyal to Temple and His Majesty, to the point that he started to wonder if he had offended His Majesty in some way. He became suspicious. What did you discover? The guard spoke softly. Master has discovered some unique energy remnants in the ruins. Chia Shangguan shook her head. No, we will wait here. Someone will receive us. Lead the way. Roger said without hesitation. Time passed slowly, but the two of them did not notice it. Roger, who was in the blazing flames, was like a god of war. His pupils had turned gray. He spoke indifferently. Carl, you actually dare to betray Temple. You must be executed. Everyone's reaction surprised Tang Tian. Is there a problem? When he saw Carl was squatting on the ground, discussing something with a few guards. When Roger heard the first half of the sentence, his expression turned cold. This Carl is so arrogant. He wants me to go over. But when he heard the second half, he was startled. Returning to the honorable Marshal continent, Tang Tian's fighting spirit was high. He felt that his entire body was brimming with endless strength. Thinking about their conversation, he stood in place and laughed foolishly. "Master Roger, Master Carl has invited you over." The guard spoke softly. "Master has a new discovery." The guard who was bending over stood up upon hearing his words. When Tang Tian finished explaining Chia's thoughts, everyone became silent. Everyone had strange expressions on their faces. "Someone is coming to receive us." "That's great." Xiao Man heaved a sigh of relief, then asked curiously, "Young miss, who is coming to receive us?" Seeing Tai Ji and Shangbei's disappearing figures, Xiao Man could not help but wave the zanbato in her hands, her expression excited. "I really want to fight a good battle." Little Forest Continent. Everyone else had weird expressions on their faces. They wanted to laugh, but did not dare. Sima Xiao could joke around with Tang Tian, but they did not dare, but many of them revealed looks of curiosity. The God Armor Army had followed Tang Tian for a long time, but they had never seen Tang Tian show any interest towards women, regardless of how beautiful they were. This was especially evident for Johnson. He had always been by Melissa's side, and any normal man, regardless of how high their position was, upon witnessing the beauty of the miss, they would either admire her or drool over her. He felt as though he had an endless amount of things to say. All of them were meticulous and tireless. His voice would go high and low, his expression would be weird, and he would speak very vividly. On the other side of the bronze star door, Chia had a sweet smile on her face. She listened attentively, and would occasionally let out a light laugh without any impatience. Everyone else recovered from the shock, and all of them revealed looks of respect. Just at that moment, a guard suddenly rushed over to him. Roger recognized the guard. He was Carl's trusted aide. Roger was furious, but the opponent's attacks were extremely fast, and he was caught off guard, causing him to lose the initiative and fall into a passive situation. But every honorable martial banner of knights had gone through extremely cruel tempering, and even if they were in danger, they would not panic. Chia's voice is truly pleasant to listen to, Tang Tian thought. Looking at the bustling construction site, the honorable martial banner of knights, Roger was not happy at all. As an honorable martial banner of knights, his identity was extremely noble, but he was actually staying in such a desolate place as a supervisor. A bewitching blade's blood-colored blade, aura, suddenly appeared in his vision from the opponent's waist. Tang Tian and Chia spoke a lot about how he was dragged into the Sin domain, how he left about Bing's arrangements, about how powerful he was, and how he lived up to his name as a godlike young lad. Xian looked straight ahead with a serious face, but the corner of his eyes glanced at Xiao Man's voluptuous chest, which was trembling along with the zanbato, and he could not help but swallow his saliva. The two of them chatted for a full 4 hours before ending reluctantly. Luckily for them, the two of them were in the honorable martial continent, and it was much easier for them to communicate. Roger walked to the front of the group of people and said, "Speak, what did you discover?" "Heh." Chia spoke softly, while Tang Tian made a huge fuss, occasionally letting out cries of surprise. His expression was extremely lively. Chia Shangguan smiled and said, "Leisurely, there will be time." Under the guidance of the guards, Roger quickly arrived at the site, which was heavily guarded, with many unfamiliar faces. Roger knew that a large organization like the Western Traders had a much deeper foundation than an ordinary organization, and they had many unknown experts in their hands. All of the unfamiliar guards were obviously one of them. Their palms were like swords, with blazing flames. They pierced towards Carl. Roger's eyes lit up. His heart was filled with interest. The remnant energy must have been left behind by the bandits. Could there be something different about it? Roger became even more excited. Carl is acting as though he is facing a great enemy. Could it be that he has discovered something? Knowing that the opponent's blade aura was strange, Roger opened his eyes wide in anger, and the gold armor on his body erupted with light aura. After laughing foolishly for half a day, Tang Tian finally thought about the important matter. He also thought about the idea that Chia had given him and the things that she had warned him about. Chapter 8:61. Roger's face revealed a sinister look with Temple's ability. As long as he did not die on the spot, Temple would be able to save him. What does a broken palm matter? As long as I return to Temple, I have a secret technique to regrow it. In the early days of the Honorable Martial Banner of Knights, the self-detonation of limbs was the most fearsome method of fighting. Roger's pupils constricted. His mind went blank. Roger looked like a skeleton enveloped in holy flames. He frantically struck the solidified space around him. Suddenly, the night sky behind him lit up with a dazzling light aura. Roger's body froze. He had been locked on. He turned his head in fear. The young man in the distance had opened up his fist, and countless of different colored light rays, like colored lightning, surged towards the young man's fist. Facing a strong enemy, Roger knew how fatal it was to underestimate him. A battle between experts was always a fine line, and if the energy in Roger's palm had suddenly exploded, the power released would naturally be the strongest. But the strange suction force caused Roger to stabilize himself. And because of that, not only did Roger lose the initiative, he even suffered some internal injuries. The flames that filled the sky were blocked by an invisible force and were unable to move forward and could only dance around Roger. Roger felt extremely uncomfortable, but he was a true elite and did not lose his rationality. He knew that he had lost his rhythm, the opponent was stronger, and he had made the mistake of underestimating him. So it was normal for him to lose his rhythm. Temple will definitely not allow such a heresy to exist. Roger's reckless strikes finally had an effect. Crack, crack, crack. Demon, this man is a demon. He only had one thought in his mind. To leave, I need to leave immediately. An expert. The solidified space immediately crumbled, and the suffocating feeling of confinement disappeared. Roger was overjoyed. The flesh on his face had been completely burned away, leaving only his bones, and his smile looked extremely ugly. Impossible. He suddenly realized the seriousness of the matter, and compared to his own life, the news was more important. Regardless of anything, I have to send the news back to Temple. Someone can block the holy flames. There's actually someone in the world that can block the holy flames. It was as though he had fallen into a pool of glue and was unable to move. What is this? Tang Tian's fist firmly blocked Luo Jie's palm sword. The holy flame was the source of power for the Honorable Martial Banner of Knights, and was also their most lethal weapon. Therefore, Jie was the first to make a move. No one could defy the will of light. Who? Roger's decisive escape caught everyone off guard. The holy flames in Roger's body blazed fiercely, and snow-white light feathers appeared on the back of his armor. He did not care about his injuries at the moment. He frantically activated the holy flames in his body. His speed was as fast as lightning. Bang! That was out of the group, other than Tang Tian and Sima Xiao. Jie was the strongest. From the looks of it, Jize's speed of adapting to the sacred domain was not fast enough. Tang Tian did not hesitate and blocked Roger's attack. If the power that could destroy a mountain was compressed to the size of a needle, it could even destroy space. The multicolored light streaked across the sky like arrows, striking the holy flames. The moment the two palms collided again, Roger felt empty, as if he had hit nothing but air. There was no energy at all. Before Roger could understand what was going on, an extremely strange and astonishing suction force came from his opponent's palm, causing all the hairs on Roger's body to stand. He almost lost control of the energy in his palm. His right palm suddenly exploded. Countless blazing white flames gushed out from his severed arm. The two of their palms were still touching. Roger's move came without any warning and instantly enveloped Tang Tian. The snow-white holy flames were like dandelions that were blown away by the wind. Blossoming white, holy flames flew into the sky and gradually dissipated. The scene was extremely beautiful. Roger's face finally changed. Initially, he did not plan to make a move so early. The plan to kill Roger was not for Roger, but for Tang Tian, who wanted to know how strong the Honorable Martial Banner of Knights were. His enemy was not only Roger. The entire Honorable Martial Banner of Knights was a nail that he had to remove. That was what Tang Tian was chasing after. The golden armor that enveloped his entire body seemed to have suddenly come alive. Every single scale was squirming, and the white holy flames exploded into a white rain of fire. Cracks started to appear in the solidified space around him. There were no armors that could block the holy flames. Never. The white flames that did not seem to be hot had a noble name: holy flames. The holy flames were Temple's highest-grade honorable martial sacred flames, and only the most devout and loyal believers could obtain them. It was the trial of light, the most cruel punishment. No, just you wait. Temple will definitely not let you go. He never thought that Roger would walk the same path as him. Roger was overwhelmed with shock. The surging holy flames had reached a level that he could never imagine. His entire body was brimming with unparalleled power. He did not believe that anyone could catch up to him. His control over his power had already reached an inconceivable level. He was still unable to condense the power that could destroy a mountain into a needle tip, but he was able to compress it into a small area. Roger had disappeared, as though he had never been in this world. That's impossible. The long period of victory and invincibility caused the Honorable Martial Banner of Knights to be arrogant, and no one else was in their eyes. They always believed that they were the strongest group of people in the world. Ever since Roger became an Honorable Martial Banner of Knights, all of his victories were easy. Very few people were able to block one of his moves, but at that moment, he finally tasted the bitter fruit of his arrogance. His heart was filled with regret. I actually did not draw my sword. Roger's attack did not produce any sound, nor did it seem to produce any sound, but instead made Tang Tian feel an extreme sense of danger. Tang Tian's move immediately attracted everyone's attention. Almost all of Tang Tian's subordinates had learned the heavy demonic execution, including Ji Zhe and Sima Xiao. The first slash of the heavy demonic execution, Blade Demon Transformation, was something they were all too familiar with. In the blink of the eye, he had flown for a few kilometers. He calmed down. The enemy did not chase after me. A figure that was wrapped tightly in golden light stood in his original position. The extremely dense golden light was like a golden liquid flowing along the surface of his body, and profound and complicated lines covered his entire body. The golden light gradually dimmed, from the bright gold to a deep dark gold. Inside the fiery rain, Roger's right palm thrusted out again. The holy light fiery rain that filled the sky was attracted and shot towards Tang Tian. Seeing the enemy being engulfed by the white flames, Roger's gray eyes regained their indifference. He had already sentenced the enemy to death in his heart. Temple will definitely gather all of their forces to capture the demon, and then dig out all of his secrets. This news was far more important to Temple than any Blue Wind City. He screamed hysterically. The holy flames seemed to have sensed the danger. The light aura erupted and burned Roger's bones, completely transforming him into a ball of holy flames. At different realms, one's understanding of power was completely different. The current Tang Tian could easily deal with attacks that could flatten mountains and create over 10 kilometers of cracks in the ground. All of these attacks looked vast and powerful, but in truth, the power was too scattered. The holy flames were unstoppable. Roger's gray eyes that did not have any fluctuations revealed a trace of change for the first time. This slight change disappeared in an instant, but his attack was like a torrential downpour. Without any warning, it exploded out. the path of an individual and an army were completely different. No matter how strong a martial artist was, the amount of energy they could use would never be able to compare to an army. Pursuing to be more concentrated, more compressed, and more efficient attacks was the path of a martial artist. It was the first time Roger's eyes revealed a look of fear. That's right, fear. The scene before him had completely toppled everything he knew. If he did not witness it with his own eyes, he would never believe that there was anything in the world that could block the holy flames. Even if it was Commander Sophie or Sacred Son Charles, if they betrayed Temple, they would only end up as ashes in front of the holy flames. His firm palm slashed down without any fancy movements. Not only was there no sound of wind, Tang Tian's palm seemed to be a bottomless black hole with an astonishing suction force. The light and shadows, the sound of the wind were all swallowed by it. Bang! Bang! Roger clenched his teeth. He knew the severity of the situation. He had underestimated the enemy, failed, and was injured. All of these were insignificant. As long as he was able to escape back to Temple alive, what awaited him was a huge merit. The seemingly slow and powerless stab contained an astonishing might. Tang Tian did not retreat, but advanced instead. He took a step forward. His fists and palms were like blades. Welcoming the stab, he slashed down from above. It was like a set of armor, an unfathomable armor. But he did not plan to give up just like that. He suddenly quivered without hesitation. He turned and ran. His speed was 3 times faster than usual. The intense sense of danger made him feel as though the death god's face was already on his forehead. The attack that was initially about to erupt was forcefully controlled. Even with Roger's physique, he was still injured. Tang Tian's face congealed. He did not dare to look down on it. These seemingly slow, gentle, and warm white flames were like a group of cute elves. But whoever thought that they were really cute would end up in a miserable state. As long as they touched it, even if it was the size of a grain of rice, they would turn into ashes in a 50th of a second. Suddenly, he felt a sense of danger. The surrounding air suddenly froze. The holy flames instantly shattered. Countless snow feathers fluttered about and disappeared. It was not some profound logic, but it was something that he had comprehended and concluded from the countless of battles he had experienced. Roger's heart was filled with fear. The opponent's methods were unheard of and extremely strange. He could smell the scent of death. He frantically activated the holy flames in his body, like a wild beast trapped in a cage. He struggled with all his might. He knew that his opponent was not weak, but he never thought that he would be so strong. But Tang Tian's Blade Devil transformation was different from all the other Blade Devils they had seen before. When the fist and palm clashed, Roger knew that he had met an expert. His will to live caused Roger to erupt with astonishing potential. The holy flames seeped out from his body, causing his skin and flesh to burn. His white bones were exposed, making him look extremely terrifying. The surging holy flames was something that even the honorable martial banner of knights could not endure. It melted into molten iron and was swallowed by the holy flames, becoming nutrients for the holy flames, strengthening them. Chapter 862. Do you know the origin of the energy vortex? Wu Kai scoffed. I heard that there are a few hundred spirit objects inside. Out of cautiousness, Go Chung Wendao ordered half of the warships to maintain combat readiness to deal with any possible ambushes. Other than that, the nimble small-scale warships formed into formations, with over 10 warships forming a tight patrolling net to prevent small-scale enemy attacks. The large-scale warships were extremely spacious and extremely comfortable. The stronghold that had just been constructed at the estuary was completely destroyed, and everyone could only stay on the warships. But from the people who came and went, they found out that the conditions inside the Shang continent were even worse. With the continuous rain, even the master did not have a house, and could only squeeze onto the small-scale warships, causing everyone to feel much better. If the star door was truly inside the blue swamps, it would definitely be a terrible matter for them. If it is in the blue swamps, then it will be troublesome. Ken laughed bitterly. Cliff did not explain the situation, but only described the enemy's style and character, which was extremely convincing. 5 days had passed since the attack on the Shang continent, but Go Chung Wendao's face remained as gloomy as a cloud. The generals and soldiers under him knew why their master was frustrated, and tactfully did not provoke him. "Stop joking." Ken nodded his head, while Zeke's expression became serious. They had fought with the Southern Alliance for so long, and they had experienced the enemy's tenacity. Out of the three of them, he was the oldest and had the most experience. In the past, Zeke had been under him for a period of time, and was personally promoted by him and recommended to the boss, thus obtaining Go Chung Wendao's recognition, allowing him to control the army alone. Wu Kai, who had just finished his patrol, came to the dining hall on the warship and joined his comrades, who were chatting. But no one was too worried about it. After the continuous battles, everyone had a better understanding of the Southern Alliance's fighting style. The Southern Alliance was proficient in positional warfare in the continent, adept at using fortifications to defend, adept at tangling in complicated terrains, for example urban warfare, or using the wreckage of warships to fight. To attack a stronghold, it required a large fleet of warships to be able to achieve it. A few dozen people would not pose any threat to such a large fleet of warships. "We can only play cards. What else can we do? Maybe we can do something more exciting." Wu Kai was secretly pleased with himself. He threw out the idea that he had long thought of. He pointed at the huge energy vortex outside the window. "Do you see that thing?" Zeke said disapprovingly. "I think you are thinking too much. They can only retreat. Only by retreating can they gain strategic depth. Otherwise, are they going to wait here to be wiped out by us?" The three of them immediately rushed into the curtain of rain, assembled the team, and began to search the nearby blue swamp. The blue swamp's tentacles extended to every corner of the sacred region. Many continents had blue swamps, but what everyone was worried about was the blue tide. The blue dwarfs were natural enemies with humans. No one knew what the depths of the blue swamp looked like. There were many powerful experts who wanted to explore it, but no one came back alive. Finding the legendary Stargate that led to the Heavenly Road was their most urgent goal. Even if he couldn't find it immediately, he could at least lock onto the general location of the Stargate. The Southern Alliance would definitely not allow themselves to be captured, but as long as they found the Star Door, all of the Southern Alliance's counterattacks would become a joke. Even the delightfully fragrant sun tea had lost some of its flavor. Now, it seemed that this possibility was very high. Hearing that, Ken and Zeke's spirits were roused. "Oh my God, I want to puke from seeing the cards. Who can come up with something new? For example, find a girl? What's going on tonight? I'm so bored." Sigh, during the war, I always look forward to rest, but after resting for a few days, I feel so bored. Ken nodded his head and said, "For them to give up the Shang continent so easily, they definitely have something up their sleeves. We cannot let our guard down." "Master, are you still worried about the Southern Alliance?" Zeke glanced at the ashen-faced Go Chung Wendao and raised his teacup with a relaxed expression. When everyone saw the energy regiment, they were shocked. That's right, they are opponents worthy of respect. I am truly curious about what they will do next. Zeke's eyes flickered with fighting intent. "A few hundred," Cliff said decisively. "We will split into 3 directions and search at the same time to increase our efficiency." "That's right." Zeke's mind was the fastest. Since they can appear in the Shang continent, then the Stargate must be somewhere nearby. Ken spoke without hesitation. "I will immediately send people to search the nearby blue swamps." The gigantic energy vortex was said to be formed from a huge battle and was near the estuary. When they anchored their warships, They intentionally distanced themselves from it, as everyone was worried that it would suddenly explode. Zeke was extremely respectful towards Cliff, and was curious, do you think that they can still create any waves? It is possible. Cliff nodded his head. The Southern Alliance first appeared in the Shang continent. This information has been verified many times. It is definitely not wrong. If there are no stargates on the ground or in the sky, then the most probable place would be the Blue Swamps. Don't forget, they once sold quite a number of Empyrean ice tree spears. Obviously, they had once ventured deep into the Blue Swamps. That was what many of the middle-ranking officers and soldiers were thinking. The enemy's base was already destroyed by them. What waves could the enemy do? Snatch the Shang continent from their hands? So, on the whole, everyone was rather relaxed. Although due to the strict orders from above, no one dared to celebrate and vent their frustrations, but everyone was already looking forward to returning victoriously. Everyone laughed out loud. That's right. Regardless of anything, the enemy was an opponent that could easily surrender. Not on the ground or in the sky. Ken was startled. If we were to say that the savage continent was isolated from the outside world and had never been conquered, then the vastness and mystery of the Blue Swamps made people even more fearful. The trade route between the savage continent and the honorable Marshall continent was not severed, and with regards to the savage continent's information and news, everyone was still able to obtain it. There is not a single person in the entire Shang continent, and you still want to look for girls? Ken had an honest personality. He did things meticulously and never found it troublesome. If even he said it was troublesome, then it was truly troublesome. The other two's faces did not look good either. Blue Swamps. Don't forget about the Blue Swamps. Zeke reminded. Cliff spoke out indifferently. Don't look down on your opponents. Zeke. Outside of the Shang continent's estuary, there were many warships docked with masts. It was a spectacular sight. All of the large and medium-scale warships and transport ships under Go Chung, Wendao were unable to enter the Shang continent and could only be docked outside the estuary. Now that both parties had switched locations, occupying the estuary, the large-scale warships were like a fortified stronghold, seeing the mud everywhere, and being stuck inside the small-scale warships, everyone's emotions were unimaginable. Cliff noticed that the atmosphere was gloomy and spoke, even if it's in the Blue Swamps, we have to find it. Everyone knows what Heaven's Road means to Temple, to the Honorable Marshall continent, and to us. We have already taken over the Shang continent. How can we retreat at such a time? Furthermore, even if we find it difficult, what about the Southern Alliance? They came to the Sacred Saint Galaxy from Heaven's Road. Don't tell me that the threat of the Blue Swamps only exists for us. All of the soldiers exclaimed out in shock. Spirit objects were priceless treasures in their eyes, and could never be compared to a few hundred of them. No, Ken shook his head. We have already searched the entire Shang continent, but have not found any star doors. As long as there were living spirits, their strength would undergo a qualitative change in a short period of time. The three generals under Go Chung Wendao all had their own specialties. Cliff's personality was firm and unwavering. Ken was honest and steady. Zeke was naturally astute. The three of them had worked together for many years and had a tacit understanding. They tactfully avoided their boss. And if they were to meet with the muzzle of a gun, they would be killed for nothing if they angered their boss. Ken was speechless. He could not find any reason to refute. It was true, a thin defensive line was unable to provide the Shang continent with sufficient protection, and upon being broken through, the situation would undoubtedly become even more dangerous. Then what's so funny about it? The soldier who was being teased stared at Wu Kai. The Blue Swamps was another world, and the blue dwarves were the natives of the Blue Swamps. After a short moment of silence, everyone became restless. Cliff was quiet for a moment, then spoke up. I do not know what other plans they have, but I can't help but think of Siegu Un. They have never lacked fighting spirit, and have never given up so easily. It is not their style to lay down their arms and surrender. This news is definitely not wrong. Wu Kai's face was mysterious, and then instigated everyone. Since we are so bored, why don't we have a grand treasure hunt? There are a few hundred spirit objects inside. If we are able to take one or two out, we will be rich. Spirit objects. It was normal for them to be annoyed. The Shang continent that they had seized was a wasteland. All of the citizens had long been evacuated, and all of the structures had been destroyed. Not even a complete house could be found. The Shang continent's estuary was too narrow, much less large-scale warships, even medium-scale warships, could not enter. In the 5 days that they had been in the Shang continent, 4 of them had been reigning. With everyone's physique, they naturally did not need to worry about getting sick, but it had truly affected their mood. The situation was set. Cliff saw that Zeke had retracted his disdain and did not speak anymore. He turned and asked Ken, "Have you found the entrance to Heaven's Road? It might not be a star door." Zeke's mind was the fastest. He thought for a moment. There is a possibility that the star door is not on the ground or in the air. But in any case, they had conquered the Shang continent, and after the continuous bitter battles, it caused everyone to be extremely tense and tired. At the moment, they finally had the time to relax, and the 3 of them sat together, sipping tea and relaxing their minds. Their expertise definitely did not include worship battles. If Boss knows that they are soaking in the rain, and you are looking for girls, "Oh, that scene is too beautiful. I do not dare to look at it." Wu Kai interrupted, his face full of exaggeration. With the help of the living spirits in Heaven's Road, they could quickly grow stronger, and the originally stronger Honorable Marshall Continent would leave the Southern Alliance far behind. The Honorable Marshall Continent had researched on spirits for many years, although they were unable to mass-produce living spirits, but they had found a way to use them. Chapter 863. With death nearing, the helplessness of the chaotic scene made the officers of the various armies choose to protect themselves without hesitation. The gigantic object, with a diameter of 26 kilometers and a height of 13 kilometers, brought forth a terrifying rumble as it crushed down, causing people to feel as though they had nowhere to run. The warship's power was pushed to its maximum, but the warship did not move an inch. Screams could be heard everywhere. Jing Hao tried to communicate with his divine sense. It was not smooth at the start, but Jing Hao was a tenacious man. Other than training, he spent the rest of his time communicating with the energy vortex. Ling Su and Crane were at the front lines, and he was at the back, and could not help at all. The energy vortex was quickly moving towards the location where the warships were anchored. Its stationary rotation was already terrifying enough, but when it moved, the pressure it brought about was simply suffocating. He did it silently, and no one knew. When Bing decided to retreat from the Shang continent, he met with intense opposition, but when he understood Bing's strategy, he suggested a plan. The soldiers controlling the warship were panicking. They tried their best to control the warship to retreat, but the warship seemed to have fallen into a swamp. What made them even more discouraged was that they did not even dare to attack the energy vortex. The energy vortex, if it were to explode, would produce a might that could swallow the entire Shang continent. But the newly born spirits gradually accepted Jing Hao, and Jing Hao tried all sorts of methods, such as entering the energy vortex. Everyone who was in a frenzy calmed down. His subordinate's voice trembled even more. "It seems to be moving towards us." The scene was extremely chaotic. Hundreds of star treasures were destroyed, but the living spirits did not disappear, but once again fused together, forming a brand new living spirit. Many people chose to abandon the ship. The corrosion of the sea of energy would not take their lives for the time being, so they had to save their lives first. They watched the gigantic object swagger about in a daze, completely unaware that the true fatal fangs were right behind them. The energy vortex at the Shang continent's estuary had long become a famous scenic spot in the Southern Alliance, and all the merchants and travelers would go there to take a look. It was the battle for the rise of the Southern Alliance, and the smoke and flames of that time had long dissipated, leaving only the energy vortex, which was as gorgeous as it was then. Every traveler who saw this energy whirlpool would be shocked by its shocking size. As the number of battleships was too large and the number of battleships was limited, the battleships were also berthed layer by layer. Many of the warships that were nearer to the center were desperately trying to rush out. Will it really work? Until one time, he felt a strand of divine sense. He suddenly recalled that Tang Tian had once unintentionally mentioned to him that something seemed to be nurturing within this energy whirlpool. A shrill alarm rang throughout the fleet. He had to admit that when this idea was proposed, it immediately attracted everyone's attention. The state of the energy whirlpool was very stable. Wu Kai wasn't the only one who could see this. It was just that no one thought that there was a spirit object inside. The soldiers who were bored to death found a small warship and flew towards the energy whirlpool. Some people noticed the small warship, but no one dared to interfere. Other than patrolling units, there were not many restrictions on the movements of the other soldiers. Tight on the outside and loose on the inside. This way, everyone would be able to relax their strained nerves. The fatal temptation caused the restaurant to be filled with heavy breathing. Jinghao's understanding towards star treasures was much deeper than others. The experienced crew members could tell with one look that the energy whirlpool in front of them was in a stable and safe state, and there was no danger. Wu Kai stared blankly at the energy whirlpool that was getting closer. He could not understand why the energy whirlpool's suction force would become stronger. It was obviously a stable energy whirlpool, and the period of stability for energy whirlpools was extremely long, usually over 1,000 years. How long has it been since the energy whirlpool was formed? When the Honorable Marshall Continent's fleet arrived, everyone was shocked when they saw the energy whirlpool. For safety considerations, the position where the warships were anchored was specially maintained a distance from the energy whirlpool. Luckily, it was stable, and its rotation speed was not fast and was extremely quiet. The various energy whirlpools in the Sea of Energy had always been the focus of the various large powerhouses, as it concerned the safety of the fleet. The Southern Alliance that personally created it. How powerful must it be? Oh my God, what's going on? Damn it, we are being sucked in. Its suction force is becoming stronger. Suddenly, someone exclaimed, "Stop! Quickly stop!" It was the symbol of the Southern Alliance's strength. The soldier controlling the warship replied, loudly, "Hey, buddy, relax, we have already stopped the ship." It had a diameter of 26 kilometers and a thickness of 13 kilometers. The only fortunate thing was that although the energy whirlpool was powerful, its speed could not be compared to the warships, and it was not as agile. Quickly call for reinforcements. Their survival instincts and overly relaxed nerves caused them to lose effective command when the fleet encountered an unexpected situation. If Go Chengwendao was there, or any one of the three great generals, the situation would not have become so terrible. Without a commanding officer with authority to command, the warships that belonged to different armies were naturally in a state of chaos. Jinghao's blood was boiling. He wanted to take action himself, but he knew that in terms of destructive power, he was still lacking compared to the big bloc. No one knew that in the center of the gigantic energy whirlpool, hundreds of star treasures were quietly floating, forming a sphere. And in the center of the sphere, a figure wielding a sword stood in the void. It was Jinghao. The fleet was in a mess. No one had ever seen such a strange and terrifying scene before. The majority of them had just awoken from their slumber. On every warship, There were soldiers running around in panic, many of them in disarray. Seeing the sparse number of warships around them, everyone's faces became even worse. Upon being sucked into the energy whirlpool, any warship would only have one result. When the small-scale warships flew close to the energy whirlpool, everyone could not help but be attracted. Looking at the energy whirlpool up close, the feeling was completely different from afar. The energy whirlpool didn't seem to be rotating very fast, but up close, the multicolored energy flow formed a wall that stretched as far as the eye could see. It carried a scalp-numbing screech as it flowed at high speed, its power terrifying. Wu Kai had seen through this point, and thus brought up the idea. When he saw Ling Su and Crane's military general talent, it made Jing Hao envious. It was not that he was envious of military generals, but that they could fight and be of help to the situation. Crane and Ling Su were busy with training, although he could not help, but he did not stop training. The gigantic energy whirlpool slowly moved towards the location where the warships were anchored, but the slowness was only on the surface. Its size was extremely huge, causing it to move slowly, but in truth, its speed was not slow at all. "What's wrong with the energy whirlpool?" he asked impatiently. To him, it was definitely Wu Kai and the rest who were bored and caused an accident. In their vision, they were getting closer and closer to the energy whirlpool. The energy flow that was like a gigantic wall in front of them was slowly closing in on them. Everyone was scared out of their wits. The small-scale warship's request for help was transmitted to the army that they were in, causing them to panic. He could not forget. When Bing knew that he could control the energy whirlpool, his poker face was completely dumbstruck. "Advance, big guy!" Even the Honorable Marshal Banner of Knights could not do it, and that was why the officers were so relaxed. Bing's reaction was fast. He quickly perfected the plan and added in more details, causing it to become even more dangerous. Exclamations sounded out. The soldiers' confidence was shaken. Wu Kai's confidence was also shaken. Before they could even move out, they personally witnessed the small-scale warships being sucked into the energy whirlpool like leaves and then disappearing. In the chaos, the small-scale warships were in the worst situation, other than the smarter ones who relied on their agility to rush out first. The other small-scale warships, under the impact of the large-scale warships, were smashed into pieces. "Retreat! Quickly retreat!" Jing Hao held on to Drunk on Saint Blood and shouted towards the void. A strand of consciousness replied to him, and the energy whirlpool rumbled forward. "Damn it! It's moving towards us!" The officer was startled. "It's too big. Damn it! I knew that this group of idiots were going to cause trouble." The brand new living spirit, due to the dense energy, grew at an astonishing speed. But when the warships that escaped saw the energy whirlpool crushing their previous position and countless of broken wood and debris being sucked into the energy whirlpool, all of their faces turned pale white. Spirit objects to the soldiers were extremely far away, something that could be seen but not obtained. But they were clear of the value of spirit objects, no matter how low a grade spirit object was. It was still a treasure. Even if they were unable to keep it for themselves, selling it would definitely be enough for them to live comfortably. As long as they could obtain one, they might be able to immediately retire and enjoy the life of a tycoon. "Master," his subordinate's anxious voice interrupted his thoughts. He raised his head, and his subordinate's voice was trembling. Energy whirlpool." The short but nightmarish chaos had brought them heavy losses. Close to 70% of the small-scale warships, close to half of the medium-scale warships, and one large-scale warship. Such losses caused everyone to be speechless. The scouts had already spread out far, and the patrol team's area of patrol was extremely large. Even the slightest movement would not be able to escape their detection. It was an impossible task to sneak in under such tight security without anyone noticing. Jing Hao's intuition was not as sharp as Tang Tian's, but his knowledge foundation was much more solid and deep than Tang Tian's. Thinking back to the process of the energy whirlpool forming, he could roughly guess what was being nurtured inside the energy whirlpool. It was not that everyone had never seen larger energy whirlpools before, but the slowly rotating multicolored monster in front of them was a product of war and was artificially formed. These words immediately caused everyone's faces to turn pale, and fear appeared in everyone's eyes. Encountering an energy whirlpool in the sea of energy, the most terrifying thing was to be sucked in by the energy whirlpool. Upon being unable to break free from the suction of the energy whirlpool, they would be sucked in. All the big and small warships were retreating with all their might, trying to break free. Wu Kai's direct subordinate officer scolded. His face was green. "What is this? Accident? In the blink of an eye, my subordinates who are not fighting have been reduced by a few dozen. No matter what, he could not escape from the charge of lax supervision."